There we go. What is up, everybody? It is a great time of year. That's right. It is the summer of soccer brought to you by Belly Up. There's two tournaments this year. We got a cast of crew to talk about it. We're going to kick off the group stage this weekend. So, therefore, we got to start this now. And we get to talk about one of the best sports in the world, the beautiful game, soccer, or for the rest of the world, football. Don't get mad at us. We are American. We have to call it soccer. I'm sorry. But joining me today are two great guests that cannot wait to have this conversation with them. Joining me for the group stage. They'll be joining me throughout this process. It's going to be a lot of fun going forward, a lot of great conversation, and a lot of hot takes, I imagine, because that's just, well, what we do. Without further ado, let's go ahead and start introducing them. First up is friend from a long time. I show up on a show every once in a while for a super sub. He is the all football guy, not just soccer. That is Hector Flores. Hector, man, how are you doing? You're dressed up nice and spiffy with the Real Madrid print and everything. How you doing with this one, bud? Oh, you're muted, Hector.
Yikes. All right. No, I'm excited. Obviously Insert Embassy is currently on a break and now I got to live my dream of being a cartoon character. So it's been great.
Yeah, what's up with all this? All of a sudden I see cartoon Hector everywhere. You're holding trophies. You're holding family. Like what's next for you?
I don't know. I'm getting more and more creative each time.
Next thing I'm expecting you to be dressed up in Santiago Bernabeu is soon enough in a cartoon character. That's what I'm expecting from you, Hector.
No pressure.
No pressure. And then also joining us is Nik Gable. He is a Belly Up Sports contributor. He writes for a bunch of different sports, but the important one today and for this summer is all about soccer. How you doing, Nik?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to get into it. I'm excited for these tournaments. Maybe some people may say they're under the radar in terms of last summer where we had the Euros and Copa America, but I think they're going to get a lot of headlines this summer.
Yeah, they are headline grabbers, I think it's safe to say. Starting off with, even a team being replaced in one of them, as we realized as we were coming on the air. Maybe we needed to fix that little moment. But look, there's been a lot of talk about what's to come, not just this year, but next year in the U.S. It is the summer of soccer 2025, but there's a bigger summer of soccer to come in the U.S. in 2026. This is a preparation. Two major tournaments. One club tournament, one international, at least for CONCACAF. Happens every time, every 2 years. But it is a chance to showcase the good in the U.S. How do you guys feel about going into this summer of soccer as a showcase for the U.S.? And we're not even going to talk about the Gold Cup, like for the team, just from the standpoint of stadiums, fan bases, travel. Do you think the U.S. is ready to host a World Cup in a year and starting off with where we are today? Hector, I'll go and start with you.
I mean, look, obviously what happened with Copa America, which it's a combination of a little bit of blame on the U.S., but the same obviously is it's CONMEBOL, how they kind of it's a very combination of what happened on that one. But I will also say, man, like with this one, you have a FIFA sanctioned tournament, which is the Club World Cup. So this is kind of FIFA getting its hands into this one. Obviously, last time a World Cup was even in the U.S. was in '94. So things have changed. A lot is being different. I think a lot of all the kinks need to be corrected in this tournament. I think we're starting to learn things right now. Right now with the Club World Cup, right, it's being told it's way too expensive, and there's some concerns now because of that. And obviously there's some other outside factors that I personally am not going to get in touch in any form of talking about. But I think it's a good conversation to say preparation for this World Cup is to make sure that one, these stadiums are ready, and two, we have the proper infrastructure for what's coming in 2026.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Nik, what about you? How do you feel about this showcase? Is it a showcase? Are we ready? What's prepared to come this summer?
For the Club World Cup, I feel like this is almost a test run for the U.S. as much as it is a showcase, because all these teams, like all the countries coming, have huge fan bases globally. There'll be a lot of people coming into the country. As Hector said, there's some political aspects I'm not going to get into. A lot of stuff going on around them, but this is a good thing to see how many American fans will show up if the tickets are too expensive. What will the stadiums look like if it's, because in the World Cup, there's going to be two countries that aren't super like huge countries, that aren't like super big soccer countries. Just like in the Club World Cup, there'll be, there might be a team from, East Asia playing a team from New Zealand. And how many American fans will really want to show up for that if the tickets are $100, right? So I think this is a good test run to see how well everything works out.
Yeah, I agree. I live in Ohio, so Cincinnati being the closest host city for me for the Club World Cup. I won't lie. I've looked at some of these group stage matchups that are in Cincinnati, and my first reaction for 2 out of the 3 of them was, "Oh, they're playing in Cincinnati." Not like a diss to them, because I still want to go watch it. But then I look at the ticket prices for the teams I'm watching, and immediately my first reaction was, "No, that's too expensive for me to drive 5 hours and then watch a game, pay the ticket prices to get there, and then be sitting in the nosebleeds of a stadium that is a beautiful stadium, however, maybe not the greatest." So I am glad you pointed out one thing, though. There's a bunch of teams coming, and they're from all over the world. It does set up for what is now the new expanded Club World Cup now. The new expanded Club World Cup is 32 teams. All 6 confederations are represented this year. And you have UEFA, CONMEBOL, CONCACAF, AFC, CAF, OFC, yes, Oceania, Asia, and Africa all have their federations represented. And you sit here and look at these teams coming from across the world. Maybe the smallest in fan base is Auckland City, but one of the largest would be something along the lines of PSG, who just won a Champions League, or who just won a UEFA Nations League, or sorry, Champions League. I was right the first time. But you have these fan bases that range from so big and so small. Hector, I want to ask you, how well do these smaller teams, are they going to travel, do you think, to the U.S. for these Club World Cups? Is it too expensive? Like, that's the big question, right, around all of this. Is it going to be too expensive for a team from Australia to see their fans in the stands?
I mean, it's gonna go down to those niche teams, and I think once again we're talking about the U.S., right? It's the melting pot. This is where people from all facets of the world have moved to, and you're gonna have those niche teams that, for instance, if I want to use an example, El Salvador, which I don't think they're ever gonna be representing the Club World Cup, but if, for instance, a lot of my family members support Isidro Metapan. Now, do I expect Isidro Metapan to ever be in the Club World Cup? Probably not, but I could definitely guarantee you that there's going to be a lot of people, especially if you go to that Washington, D.C. area, even in L.A., that there's a lot of people from that region of El Salvador that are going to do all that they can to get to be in that stadium to watch their club play in a really big, beautiful stadium. So, and I think the same thing will go for the fans of Liga MX teams, right? Like when you think of Monterrey and you think of Pachuca, those are very big fan bases here in the U.S. as well. Auckland, I mean, I know that there's people from New Zealand that live here in the U.S. Now, are they football, soccer fans? I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, I think rugby is the big sport in those regions.
Yeah.
But I'm sure if, it's the World Cup in some aspect, and I'm sure that there's people that are planning their tickets, if you will, for that event as well. So I think at the end of the day, it's all about representation when it comes to it. And I think if they're seeing that it might even go down to even national pride at this point. Someone from Auckland City or just people from New Zealand hoping to see that someone from their nation could be represented for them.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And, it is interesting because the U.S. is as diverse as it is, as come to be, despite some of the other inklings out there. It does make for a very and as you look at how the diversity plays into the rest of the game, you wonder, can we fill out the stands? Nick, I want to ask you, when you look at these teams, is there one of these teams that just doesn't do it for you in the Club World Cup? Let's start there with the Club World Cup. Is there just one team that you just I don't care?
I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but we've already talked about Auckland City. And they're on, I'll, spoil a little bit. They're on my teams to watch in that group, mainly because I was like, I know they're from New Zealand. Do they play in the Australian League? Because I know there's a team in New Zealand that plays in the Australian League, but they don't. They play in the New Zealand League, and they're currently 4th in the New Zealand League. And they will go up against Bayern Munich, and we could see a biblical ass whooping, because there's just not a lot of people flocking to New Zealand to play soccer. And I think it is a little weird how it feels. The European teams are getting a lot of headlines, and maybe some South American CONCACAF teams are. But the fact that there's a couple of teams that, they're getting paid for their time and they're professionals, so they're going to enjoy it. But for me, I don't know. I'll probably turn it on just to see what the score is. And if it's, can Bayern Munich reach double digits? We'll see.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Now, okay, so we talked enough about the clubs in the Club World Cup. But if we talk about setting the table, right? This is a show. We're covering 2 different tournaments in this show. So we have to set the table, right? We talked about the Club World Cup. Well, there's another tournament. It is an international tournament. It is the Gold Cup. CONCACAF Gold Cup, 15 CONCACAF nations and an invitee nation. This year, Saudi Arabia being the invitee nation. So half the size of the Club World Cup. We've seen it around the U.S. a bunch. The U.S. hosts this every time nowadays. I used to try to switch, and I think 20 years ago, and now they just said, forget that. We're just going to do it in the U.S. all the time because they have the most FIFA compatible, I guess is the proper term to say, stadiums, grade 5 or above stadiums. So that's where you see the Gold Cup in the U.S. We've seen this multiple years. They've succeeded multiple years with the Gold Cup. Before we get into the first half, second half breakdown, where we do talk more in depth, I do just want to get your guys' take real fast. Does the Gold Cup matter going into a World Cup year more or less for some of these teams than in the past? Nick, let's go right back to you for this one.
I would definitely say more, because there's a lot of teams in the Gold Cup that aren't Mexico, Canada, or the U.S. that are trying to qualify for the World Cup. So they are using this tournament as almost like another extra game to see the opposition, who they're going to be going up against. And then for USA, Mexico, and Canada, I would say, now we can talk about this more later, but hopefully, you would have hoped that more players as a US fan would be playing in this CONCACAF Gold Cup, because you would see them kind of mesh with the new coach and the coaching style. With Mexico, I think they have a decent amount of their first teamers playing. Canada, I think it's just like a couple of their first teamers aren't playing. But I think it matters. Yes, to answer your question, it does really matter more than any other year.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And Hector, what about you? How do you feel about going into the Gold Cup this year? How does it matter for the Big Four, right? I think Big Four, I guess you can say Big Five, include Panama, who is a higher rank than Jamaica, but I always think of Jamaica as one of the Big Four CONCACAF powerhouses. So how do you feel like it ranks for them, and then compare that maybe to the lesser teams in the Gold Cup? Does it matter as much for the big teams?
I mean, at the reality is, at the end of the day, USA, Canada, Mexico are not part of CONMEBOL. They're not part of UEFA. They're not part of, CAF. They're a part of CONCACAF. At the end of the day, that's their confederation, and you need to compete in Gold Cup. That is your assigned competition. Sure, if you get invited to Copa America, have fun and enjoy that atmosphere. But at the end of the day, this is your tournament. This is this is who you have to face it off against. These are the guys. These are the teams that you go up against in World Cup qualifiers. So at the end of the day, CONCACAF Gold Cup should be taken more seriously. And going with what Nick said, Mexico, they brought their roster, they brought their team. Canada, aside from Alphonso Davies, who obviously is injured and is not available, but they brought their team. And then you have the U.S., who, and of all the teams that are having more pressure on them because of just how poor they were in the Nations League. Remember that tournament that everyone says doesn't matter anymore? Yeah, and that competition, they got flat out embarrassed in that competition. And then obviously this is the last chance for competitive matches. Friendlies are friendlies, and they're great and all that, depending on who you face off against. But it's still not going to equate to a competition where there is something on the line. And yes, I am a little bit disappointed with the U.S. men's national team. To me, it's to blame. It's everybody that's up to blame. It's Pochettino not being able to be more assertive with the guys. It's the guys that, and I'm not here blaming the guys that are competing in Club World Cup. They have a valid reason for not to be here, but the guy that right now that's trying to pick a fight with a guy that chose a sabbatical. Either way, it's insane that we're in this state right now. But I'm sure we're going to talk more about the U.S. men's national team. But for those big three, they're automatically in the World Cup. They need to get as much as they can right now to prepare for that World Cup, because at this point it's friendlies, and that's you can still gauge from friendlies, but not when you have a real competition where it is win or go home. So for USA, Canada, and Mexico, this is a dress rehearsal. This is them to get prepared for the World Cup, because they don't have to qualify. They're already in the World Cup. Now for Panama and other nations that are still going through qualifiers, as a matter of fact, they're going into the third round now of World Cup qualifiers. Yeah, they still got a lot to play for, and they got a lot to show as well. And I can't wait to see what we get to see from those nations as well. And if you want to throw in Saudi Arabia, I think very similar to what Qatar did in the last two Gold Cups. They came here because they wanted to get some competitive matches in, and also kind of get a feel of some other competition besides, the ones from the Asian Federation.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. Saudi Arabia, obviously, if you guys don't know, the reason behind the invitee is to make it even one for the tournament, but also it gives the opportunity for a host nation, for a special nation, if you will. Qatar was invited because they were the World Cup host, so they never got real competitive games other than the Gold Cups in the past. Saudi Arabia now is another invitee. It's also to political reason, builds great relationships. I hate bringing up the political reasons, guys. I'm sorry. I had to do it, but that one unfortunately is necessary. So to set the table, here's the plan. All right. Like I said, we got two tournaments. We're going to split it into just like a soccer match. You have first half and second half. First half, we're going to talk Club World Cup. So while we did just intro what everything is, we're going to dive in deep. We're going to talk host cities. We're going to talk group stages. We're going to talk everything about this tournament just to kick it off. Second half will be all Gold Cup. So save the U.S. talk for the second half, guys. I love it, but we'll get to it. Don't worry. We're going to save the best for last, right? This is our dessert after dinner if you're one of those boring people. So I'm a dessert first type of guy, but what can I say? Surprise. But all right, let's get into it, guys. Here's the first half. It is the Club World Cup. If you guys didn't hear me talk about it just a minute ago, it has been expanded. 32 teams, 6 confederations, 81 total countries represented amongst those confederations. We have UEFA, CONMEBOL, CONCACAF, AFC, CAF, and OFC. All of these teams are split up into 8 groups, 4 teams in each group, and they're sent to host cities to play their group stages. Now, the host cities, they are as follows. Los Angeles, East Rutherford, which is, for those that don't know, that'll be your Jets-Giants stadium. You have Charlotte, which is where the Carolina Panthers play, also where Charlotte FC plays. You have Atlanta in that beautiful Mercedes-Benz Superdome, which will probably take us to Mars one day because it is insane, but the best concession prices out of all of them. Philadelphia, Seattle, Miami, 2 Orlandos, by the way, the football stadium and the Orlando City Stadium, Nashville, Cincinnati, and Washington, D.C. So you got a ton here. You got a ton of cities that it's going to go across the nation, but Club World Cup is pretty predicated on being in big cities. Out of these, Nashville, Cincinnati, probably the 2 smaller of the group, maybe Charlotte, but they're around big cities. These host cities we just talked about, they're expensive. They're hard to get to in times. We don't really have the best infrastructure for getting from point A to point B. Do you think, as we just talked about in the intro, this is going to be a successful, non-problematic dress rehearsal? Or how bad do you think these potential problems are going to be? Do you think we'll ever reach the level of what was the Champions League a couple years ago final where they couldn't even let fans in? Or do you think it's going to be maybe a couple bugs here and there that will figure themselves out? Hector, go ahead and start us off on that.
I think my first concern right now is still the fields. Obviously, this is a FIFA sanctioned competition, so that means no turf. It has to be grass. So I think that hopefully there was enough time to do a quick turnaround Specifically, I'm aiming towards more the NFL stadiums to have the fields ready. Rutherford is a stadium that I have so many concerns about, just because of his track record. For the players, just tape up your legs a little bit tighter this time around, or whatever is recommended by your doctors, because yeah, I think that one, I like the variety of the places. I think it's great to showcase what this country has to offer. I think Nashville has a very beautiful stadium, so I'm glad that it's getting showcased in the Club World Cup. Obviously, there's also Gold Cup happening, so that's why maybe we don't see many Texas or California being showcased as much. But it's, obviously because there's two competitions going on at the same time. But nonetheless, I think that's going to be really something that's going to be kept an eye on, is how is the grass going to be kept? And because that was a big complaint in Copa America. It was a huge complaint that the fields were just not up to par. So hopefully that the FIFA, along with CONCACAF, just being on top of making sure that the switch over from turf to grass was done fluidly. As far as ticket attendance, obviously, I think they're going to be very tight on security. It is FIFA, so security is going to be tight. I think they're going to, want to avoid all that they can from what happened in Copa America last year. So I think there has already been lessons learned, and now it's time to see if they have applied it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think it's a really good point about the turf. I just talked about Mercedes-Benz a minute ago. It is a field turf, so it is a hybrid field or turf plus grass type of combination. I believe they use a cork now in there as the base, but it plays like an ice rink for a football match, for a soccer match. So that is something that you've heard players talk about that they have to adapt to. It's a different type of ball. It has a little more texture on it. Your cleats have to change up to turfs. Nick, how much do you think these, as Hector pointed out, the turf is going to play a factor into these different host cities? Because many of these are full grass and many of these are a hybrid combination or just a pure field turf. Like how do you think that's going to play out? Because they all have to be switched. So are they going to is it going to play out like an ice rink in some of these, or is it going to be actually pretty good?
I'd hope it plays out like an ice rink, because that means it's probably like back and forth competitive games and not just like 1-0, 2, So that's what I would hope. In terms of the host cities, I think I would wonder if maybe one year down the line it could move to, like, if you have these two tournaments or two tournaments in America, you do one on the East and one on the West Coast, or like split the country in half. Because I think Americans are going to see a lot of Europeans complaining about our transportation infrastructure on Twitter, because they're going to be like, I had to take a bus, then a train, and then an Uber to the stadium. And then I had to, like, I don't know, fly to another state to go to the next game. So there'll be a lot of that too.
It's funny you bring up train because, as I mentioned earlier, I live in Ohio. Train transportation between one city to another, non-existent in Ohio. But New York, LA, Atlanta to some degree, with the MARTA down there, Philadelphia. You can actually get from Philadelphia to East Rutherford pretty easy, along with DC along the way. But Nashville, Orlando, Miami, no chances of jumping on a train at any of those. And that's something when you talk about transportation, every other country in the world is used to. U.S. fans are like, what? Train? Why would I do that? I could just drive. It's a whole ball game. Now, do you guys have a stadium that you're excited to see teams play in? Obviously, Hector, you said which one you're not excited to see in East Rutherford. But do you have a favorite at all in this one, Hector?
I think I kind of mentioned it. I think it's Nashville, but I think the other one, I mean, everyone's gonna want to go to Miami. And let's just be honest. And I think also another stadium that we should probably keep an eye on with the Hard Rock Stadium, I think it's called.
Yeah.
The one from Miami. So there's gonna be a lot of tension on that one, obviously, because a certain GOAT is gonna be in that stadium probably most of the time, or at least maybe hopefully for most of the time. But yeah, I think that Hard Rock Stadium will probably be another one. Nashville, I just think it's aesthetically pleasing. I think it's one of the better soccer specific stadiums that we have to offer, and that's why I can't wait to watch some international games being played over there.
That's fair. Nick, what about you? Do you have a favorite one?
I'm going to change your question a little bit, and I'm going to
Okay.
say intriguing to the East Rutherford Stadium, because I don't know if the viewers are aware, that is where the World Cup final will be held. And it tripped me out reading an article from The Guardian the other day where they were talking about England and they were talking about the preparations for the World Cup and how their like recent form has been. And the writer wrote like it will all matter to see if they can get to the final in New Jersey. And it like tripped me out like, oh my gosh, there's gonna be a World Cup final in New Jersey, which is just so strange to read on your phone. So yeah, I would say Heath Rutherford.
I mean, it's let's be honest. When it comes to U.S. soccer, like the New Jersey area, that is the hub for a lot of soccer players here in the U.S. I mean, so many names have been from that Jersey region, so I think it is fitting that it is in Jersey. I know that's not what you're pointing out, but yeah, I think I understand the logic behind why they chose East Rutherford, New Jersey. That's where all the ballers came from so far from the U.S. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say ballers, but that's where most of the guys from U.S. soccer has come from.
Not
so
lately.
far.
Not lately. No
Yeah,
ballers
lately they're all California kids, and then you got one kid from Hershey, Pennsylvania, and then overseas. Seems to be where they're all coming from now. Hector, you did point out Miami, by the way, hosting the finals for this Club World Cup. We'll get to that when we do the finals episode, though, and the semifinals. But I do want to point out, by the way, you mentioned soccer-specific stadiums, one that you're excited for. I also love Cincinnati's stadium for a soccer-specific stadium. It is actually really cool as well. I wish Atlanta's had a little bit less of a roomy feel for the stadium. I do love the stadium. It's going to be the cheapest concessions across this tournament. I said that earlier. I'm going to keep pointing that out because it is still the coolest thing to me. $2 for a drink that you can refill. Blowing international minds is all I have to say about that. But these cities will kick off the hosting duties on Saturday, June 14th. It's right here, guys. We're right here. Match day 2 will come Thursday, June 19th, and that's second game for everybody in their group. Third game for everybody starts June 23rd, which is a Monday, and the end of the group stage for the Club World Cup is on the 26th. That's deadline day, if you will. That is the day that it's do or die for some of these teams in the group stage. And some of these teams in the group stage that matter, there are a lot of big names. We're going to go down group by group, and we're going to talk about each group. We're going to talk about your team to watch within the group, as there are 4 teams per, but there's some heavy hitters in here. And then, as I've talked about, there are some smaller squads that maybe just get a participation trophy. But we'll let you guys decide who you guys' teams to watch here as we jump into Group A for this one. Now, coming into Group A, you have Al Ahly. Inter Miami, as Hector mentioned, is there's just so happens to be one superstar there. I don't know who his name is. Maybe somebody can scratch my brain on that one here in a minute. Palmeiras and Porto all in Group A. So you have a representative out of Egypt, the U.S., Brazil, and Portugal here covered up in Group A. Now, I just got to get the GOAT out of the room, if you will. Messi, is he going to be your player to watch? I know this is like completely off the board of what I'm supposed to ask you guys, but it's the GOAT in the room here. I think we have to ask, is he going to be the player to watch in this group? Hector, you shook your head, so I'm a little curious.
This is not a disrespect to Messi. Obviously, everyone knows I'm a Madrista, but I am an admirer of Messi now that he's not at Barcelona anymore. But he's not the name. I think everyone's gonna watch him. I think everyone's gonna want to try to get a chance to witness Messi in person. But to me, it's Estavio. I think from Palmeiras, I think this is another young Brazilian player that has been linked to multiple clubs. I don't know if he's been transferred out yet. As last time I checked, I believe he's still on the roster for Palmeiras. I think that's the guy to watch because once again, it's another another Brazilian team that has a lot of interest. Hopefully, it's not the same as Endrick, but I think for me, this is my once in a lifetime chance to watch what this kid can do before he goes over to Europe. And I think that to see what he can do, especially with Palmeiras, a very strong Brazilian side, if he could be the it factor for that team in this Club World Cup.
By the way, a checklist of Estavio's talents, his strengths: finishing, dribbling, long shots, key passes, direct free kicks. This tweet also says weaknesses: none. He's only 16. So take that.
So he's the Rock from Jumanji.
Exactly. Nick, I'm gonna ask you the same question. Is Messi the guy that you're going to watch in this one? Before we get into the teams, is he the one you're watching, or are you watching somebody else from this group as maybe somebody to make an impact that changes the tide for this matchup, which is a relatively even group if we're being fair to these teams? I think it feels like a relatively even layout outside of Porto being the top dog.
Yes. I'm most interested to see what Messi we get. Is it Argentina Messi, who is, playing hard in those qualifying games and played well in Copa America? Or do we get a little bit of an MLS Messi who walks more and is more kind of a moments player, which he's always been a moments player, but he doesn't really grab the game like he does in the Argentinian when he plays for the national team. So yes, I am watching Messi. I also think the world, or maybe the American soccer viewing audience, will be boosted by if Inter Miami do well. Because if they do well, I think people will get into it and be like, oh my gosh, look, they're playing, Chelsea or whatever big European team in the quarterfinals. What's going to happen? Can Messi carry this team?
No, that's a fair point. If they can get out top of the group, by the way, they would play the second team out of Group B, I believe, is how that ends up breaking down. So there are some heavy hitters that they could match up with that. We talk about some fan bases. They have pretty large fan bases that they could match up against. Obviously, Messi being who he is, right? He's always going to catch a lot of headlines, but this group is filled with headline makers as well. Estavio being one. Porto. Let's not forget about Porto. One of the best teams to ever come out of Portugal, outside of Benfica, who, by the way, also in this tournament. But both of these squads from Portugal should never be overlooked. But Palmeiras, as you guys have rightly said, they're a young feeder squad into a lot of European talents from Brazil. Should they be a team that you watch? And then LLE is out of Egypt. They honestly, I don't get watch a lot of Egyptian matches, but I do know that they have some young talents from this Egypt team who, led by Mo Salah right now, who is now on his way out of the Egypt team. They are being replaced with a lot of players from LLE into that team. So now you look at this match, this group across the board, there's some potential heavy hitters that can come out of this. Maybe they don't match up with a PSG down the road, but they could be a team to watch. So in that point, Hector, who is your team to watch from this group?
My team to watch. Well, you know what? I think Nick's gonna pick that team, so I won't go with them. I'm gonna say Porto. I think you made some good points about Porto. They're the only European side in this group, and obviously, I think a lot of people are just quick to assume that if it's a European team, they're gonna take care of business. And I think Porto is a very good team. Obviously, they unfortunately fell short in a lot in the Portuguese league this year. So I think that, because I believe Sporting won the Portuguese league this year. So I think that, they want to make a statement. This is the first ever extended FIFA Club World Cup. This is we haven't had an official champion to lift that trophy that looks like a puzzle. No one's going to get to be able to say this. And remember, this is the team that won a Champions League. Mind you, it was a very stacked Porto team led by Jose Mourinho back when he was an innovator. And so I think that that they have a lot to prove. And I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are counting them out. And they want to let them know, hey, we're in a UEFA club.
No, that is a fair point, though. It is worth mentioning Angel Di Maria, by the way, also on this Porto squad. So not lack of knowledge between him and familiarity, I should say, between him and we just talked about Messi. And Messi, obviously great friends there. Also former rivals with most of Inter Miami's big three. Actually, all of Inter Miami's big three. As he's a Madrista from your side of the world as well, Hector. But you sit here and look at this as Porto is there. They are obviously a team. Nick, is that who you're watching? Are you watching somebody else in this group as your team to watch?
I'm watching. I already mentioned Inter Miami. I think the best outcome and the most exciting outcome of this Club World Cup is Inter Miami making a deep run, and just the whoa, is Messi, the Ronaldo Messi debate kind of somehow, 20 maybe 15 years ongoing debate somehow raging on after Ronaldo wins the UEFA or the Nations League, and Messi making a deep run. I don't think they can win it at all, but I think if they make the quarterfinals, like if they upset Madrid or PSG in the round of 16, that's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of buzz. So I also think the USA, maybe neutral, like casual soccer fan who won't really know many players on the other two MLS teams will be very keen on Inter Miami.
All right, I like it. By the way, Mr. 305 is in the building for you on that call out for Inter Miami. Shout out to our Miami fans down there. Obviously, for me, I'm not going to go Inter Miami and Porto as much as I like the two teams. I do like Palmeiras, and the reason why I like Palmeiras was actually what Hector said was Estavio. I think he's a great talent for going forward to look at for Brazil. He's 16. Young talents like him don't come around as often as they should. But it seems like Brazil churns them out more often.
Have they really?
Let me put it this way. If there's a country that's going to overhype somebody that I'm really interested in watching, it's going to be a Brazilian team. And I'm going to be interested in watching them play on a world stage early. So maybe I don't have as many questions as I do for somebody like Indrik, who is playing with Real Madrid. But I have questions on his total ability at that level. I think this is one where you have Estavio as a potential difference maker at a 16-year-old age against what could be international competition down the road. Whilst in a club situation, it could also be impact his future for Brazil, which is always very intriguing. No matter what anybody says, Brazilian national team soccer is always fun, and young, talented Brazilians are always going to impact everybody's favorite team, no matter where they are in the world. Whether it be a Citigroup team or you're a normal person who doesn't like oil money and anybody else. Or you're Hector and you're an Arsenal fan. I'm sorry, Hector. You don't claim him today. All right, fair enough. You are rooting for a team in the Club World Cup. All right, so you guys have picked your teams to watch here. Hector, you are picking Porto as your team to watch. Nick, you're picking with Inter Miami for your team to watch. I'm going with Palmeiras. Now into Group B. In Group B, you have Atletico Madrid, Hector's arch rivals, not named Barcelona, Botafogo at PSG, who, as I mentioned, Champions League winners, and Seattle Sounders, who got in through the MLS protocol. This is a very interesting one. You have two heavy hitters, Atletico Madrid and PSG, and then you have Botafogo and Seattle. And Botafogo, by the way, out of Brazil as well. Back-to-back Brazilian teams in groups here. It's going to be a theme throughout the rest of this. Do Seattle and Botafogo have enough to take out an Atletico Madrid and a PSG? Nick, I want to start with you on this one because these are two heavy hitters. As you're wearing a Lyon shirt, I got to start with you to talk about PSG. I'm sorry.
I will say this is against most jersey wearing tradition, but I'm not a huge Lyon fan. This is just a really cool jersey I got at the mall. Those things still exist, by the way. My sneaky, like, off the rails hot take prediction is that one or maybe two European teams is just going to lay an egg. And if you're like a betting man, you might want to bet it for Atletico Madrid because they play a really like rugged style. Like how motivated is some of these teams going to America? Like maybe it is like a huge thing for them, but I think one of these European teams is going to like find themselves in the last match day being like, oh crap, like we have to get a win and something else has to happen because they're kind of like taking a break and their players are on international break. These European teams are going to look tired in some of these games. And I wonder if that's going to convince these managers to be like, maybe halfway through the tournament, be like, let's use our bench more. Let's use our U23 players more. Let's use, the youth team. So I think they do. I think Botafogo and Seattle Sounders do have a chance.
Okay. I like it. Hector, obviously you don't love Atletico Madrid. You love the other side of Madrid. Do you feel like what Nick said is a possibility that Atletico could be the team that lays an egg and you could see a Botafogo or a Seattle Sounders sneak their way through?
Absolutely not. Look, as someone that has to deal with Atletico Madrid and actually respects Atletico Madrid, I also have a respect for Barcelona. A hateful respect, but still respect nonetheless. This is right up Atletico Madrid's alley. I just want to point that out. This is when it comes to these kind of competitions, especially this one. Atletico Madrid are a very good tournament team. Don't let that take anything away from that team. Diego Simeone, the reason why that man still has a job with that team is because those guys on that roster are 100% bought in. Speaking of being bought in, the prize money involved with this will be easily capable to let everybody know, do not play your bench. Do not play your U23 guys. We want the money, because that money could pardon some teams that are dealing with financial fair play. So at PSG, I'm looking at you and Man City and probably Chelsea. Real Madrid doesn't look that bad right now, but still, I think that prize money that's a get out of jail free card for some of these FPP teams or FFP teams. So as far as that, I don't underestimate Cholo. Cholo is a scary man that I will never say anything mean about because he terrifies me. But
for the audience that doesn't know, please explain. Who is Cholo?
Cholo Simeone is a dog. Diego Simeone. But yeah, the guy is 100.
Some don't know. Some don't know the callback to that.
Go watch David Beckham's documentary. The guy was so proud of that he got under David Beckham's skin. Like that just defines him. Dog, and his team is nothing but dogs. So but look, Seattle's been super overwhelming. It's not been a great season for Grace. It hasn't been great lately for Seattle. And Botafogo, I think, are going to be a really good team. That to me is a dark horse team, but I think at the end of the day, the only thing you could probably pray for is that PSG is still hungover from the Champions League.
Yeah, that's fair. By the way, to your point about the prize money, Atletico Madrid brought Conor Gallagher, Rodrigo De Paul, Koke. You have Azpilicueta. You have Barrios, Lamar, Llorente. Going down the list of their superstars are on this roster. So, yeah.
And I mean, on top of that, well, I mean, obviously he can't play in the Club World Cup, but they are pursuing Christian Romero from Tottenham.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, let's just say Atleti did not come here to play, or to sit back and watch. They came here to play and try to take home a title. Now, guys, teams to watch. Obviously, Hector, we just talked about Atleti. Is that your team to watch?
That is my team to watch. I think, once again, I'm going to just say this. They're tryhards. They are. And I respect that. I think that they're going to want to participate. Once again, the money is going to be this is TST for internet, for just clubs, for professional soccer clubs. This is the TST. If you guys don't know what the TST was, you missed out on an awesome tournament, by the way. Yes. But yeah, with that prize money, this is the only incentive. Remember, everyone was criticizing the Club World Cup from the get-go because it was just not very well organized. And I to some extent, I still kind of believe that. But that money just changed everybody's opinion. Hell, you put that money in front of me, I'll be like, what are you talking about? I love the Club World Cup. I'll be the spokesperson for the FIFA Club World Cup as we speak right now if that money was flaunted over me. So, like, yeah, no, these teams that are coming, they're coming to play. We've seen, they've already unveiled some of their rosters, and they're bringing in their guys. And I think this is what FIFA was trying to make sure was going to happen because of that prize money. They don't want to see reserve players. They don't want to see academy players. They want to see Antoine Griezmann, which I think that's a big factor for me for Atletico Madrid. They just extended him. Obviously a strong first half of the season, kind of got quiet in the second half, but he is fully committed. He teased LAFC this whole time saying that he was going to come to LA. The dude loves America. The fact that they're trained, I believe they're trained right now in Pasadena, and he pointed out, hey, Caleb Williams played here. That he said that in Spanish, and I just want to say, Antoine Griezmann is wanting to show out here in the U.S. He loves this country for some weird reason, and I'm not going to be against it. It's Griezzy. Everybody loves him. He's a vibe. So I think that this Atletico Madrid is very much going to be a competitive team in this tournament.
Yeah, by the way, he is a diehard American football fan as well. He has many videos with other NFL players. Odell Beckham being one of them was the first one that he did a video with of either matching up one-on-one against him, going as a DB against a receiver, or vice versa. To be fair, he's pretty quick. Can't jump over the tall out of some of the guys that you see in the NFL, but you know what? I love him for it. Now, Nick, are you going with Atleti, or are you going somewhere else here for a team to watch for you?
When I thought of team to watch, I thought, would it be fun? Who's really fun to watch? And PSG has been probably the most fun team in Europe to watch this season. The way they dominate the ball, the way they kind of let their wingers cook. Their midfield is like a car crash if you try to enter it. I think they're coming in here as the heavy favorites. And I'm watching PSG.
No, that's a good call. They are literally bringing everybody. By the way, they won the Champions League, and they're like, "Hey guys, we're going to America. We're gonna go win another tournament. We're bringing everybody. Nobody gets time off. Everybody 1 through 16 in their numbers are on this trip. Donnarumma, Doué, everybody in between. It's going to be a situation where PSG is going to be a team, obviously, to watch. However, I do say however, I'm with Hector in his dark horse potentially for this group as my team to watch. It's Botafogo for me. They are a team in Brazil that they send out sneaky good players, guys that last in European leagues for a long time. They build them, but then they also bring them back before they're out in that retirement pasture like a lot of people. So this team is a good mix of young talent mixed with not experience, but experience and European experience at that. So they have a chance to match up with Atleti and PSG and potentially dominate a Seattle Sounders team that's maybe not ready for what they're going to see. Maybe sees a little too many bright lights in front of them, which is funny saying that about Seattle because that's one of the teams, if from the MLS, you can probably say does best in these competitions between countries. But I don't know if this is the right tournament for the right group for them to try to be that team for an MLS squad. So for me, it's Botafogo is my team to watch going into Group B. So just to recap, Hector, you're going with Atletico Madrid for your team to watch. Nick, PSG, the Champions League winners. And I'm going with Botafogo to watch for Group B. One of us is going to be wrong. I'm intrigued to watch it. Probably going to be me. That's just tends to be the way this goes. Thankfully, I'm not putting a jersey bet on it like Hector does. But maybe I should next year. Maybe that's what we do. Maybe.
It'd be
maybe
nice.
That'd be a world.
It'd be nice if it was someone else besides me.
Maybe I'll do that for the World Cup. That sounds like a good plan. Moving into Group C now. There's a heavy hitter here. We talked about it a minute ago. The lowest followed team on any social media in Auckland City FC. Bayern Munich, who is the top 3 followed team. Benfica, who I just talked about, is one of the best teams to play in Portugal year in and year out. Them Sporting as well as Porto. And then Boca Juniors, who is an Argentinian powerhouse. There's a reason I lost count of trying to count these stars when I was doing this. I believe there are over 50 stars in their badge. Those are champions stars, by the way. Nobody knows what the stars are for on badges. Those are champion stars for Argentinian leagues. They're a team that produces some of the greats like Carlos Tevez and even better from Argentina. So this is going to be a group that I have one question for everybody before I go any further. Can Auckland City even get a point in this group? Nick?
I don't think so. They're 4th in the New Zealand League. The New Zealand League isn't a highly ranked league. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of a player coming out of the New Zealand League. There's obviously probably New Zealanders who've played in the New Zealand League, obviously, like maybe Chris Woods played in the New Zealand League, but no, I don't think they get a point.
Yeah. Hector, based on your face, I'm saying you believe they cannot get any points.
When's the last? Who's they're playing against last?
I believe their last matchup is Boca, if I'm not mistaken. I believe they match up with Bayern first.
Yeah, no, especially with Boca. I think, especially on decision day, no.
Yeah. Okay, so we got that out of the way. Now, Bayern Munich, Harry Kane, finally won himself a trophy this year. Can he make it 2 trophies in the same year? For the first time in his life, he gets a trophy in a club competition or in any competition. And now he gets a chance for 2. Can he pull it off? Can Bayern maybe not just walk away with this group, but walk away with the whole tournament? How do you guys weigh Bayern's chances in this? Hector, we'll go back to you.
I think Bayern has a strong club. They, obviously Leroy Sané just went over to Galatasaray, but even then, I mean, it's not a big loss. You got Olise. This team just gets better. They don't rebuild. They just reload. And I think they have a good core of players. Harry Kane finally lifted a trophy for himself. So I think that they're in a good place. They have the right construction. I think as much as we had a lot of doubts about Vincent Kompany, but with a club, with the guys that you have at Bayern Munich, it's a real easy job, to be the manager there. And I think, though I do think Vincent Kompany did bring a certain sense of intensity with them, and that's why they were able to finish games a little bit more easily than they did last year. They looked a lot more certain. They looked more confident, and which is what you want from Bayern Munich if you're a Bayern Munich fan, which I'm not. But I think that they're a strong team. I think that they're a team that we should be worried about if they go deep into the tournament, because they fight and they fight pretty hard.
Yeah, that's fair. By the way, Vincent Kompany will keep Leroy Sané in the squad for the Club World Cup. They are allowing it because of the rules changes to the tournament. They allow summer transfers to potentially stay if the other team they're transferring to does not participate in the Club World Cup. Also, 2 summer transfers in, Jonathan Tah and Tom Bischoff will also be on the roster for Bayern. Nick, does that change anything for you? Did Leroy Sané staying and even the 2 new signings staying, does that even maybe impact your thoughts on Bayern going forward? Or do you think they're still already dominant? They're going to continue to be potentially dominant?
I would say they're so dominant that the Ta definitely gives them some stability at the back, but Sane, there's a reason he's leaving, right? So
Yeah.
if you really want, you're Bayern Munich, you have a lot of money. If you really wanted to keep him, you would have kept him. They are looking into Nico Williams from Atletico Bilbao and of Spain. And I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, there's a transfer window, like kind of period after the group stage where you can sign players. And I would be interested to see if they try to kind of DHS or DHL that transfer to get him in there, because I think it would be so much fun seeing him. But I do think they're favorites.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. This tournament is weird when it comes to the roster rules. It is very Gold Cup-esque. When we get to the Gold Cup, we can talk about that a little more too. But this one is very odd just because from the club standpoint, it doesn't often happen that we have an interchange of summer transfer window mixed with major tournament, where you do get this interchange of players. There's been rumors that somebody would sign Ronaldo for a short-term loan just to play in the tournament, just to match him up against Messi. There were jokes that he would sign with Inter Miami and he'd play with Messi, but obviously we know that's not ever going to happen. Now, looking at this group, guys, who's your team to watch? Nick, I'm going to go right back to you. Who's the team to watch for this one?
I would say Auckland City, just because I think they could lose like 2 games by plus 10 goals. Like, you're going to have to check their scores. You're going to have to see what happened. Like, they're 4th in the New Zealand League. Like, it's going to get bad.
Yeah.
And we all love watching a car crash, as long as no one's hurt.
Well, exactly. As long as no one's hurt. But Hector, you gave a wipe of your face as he was talking about the score lines potentially. Are you going to be doing that reaction when you see some of these score lines? Is that you're already imagining the reaction of like scrubbing your eyes and like, I can't believe this? Is that what you're going to be watching for too? Is like a team like Auckland City?
I mean, Auckland will be someone I keep an eye on, just because obviously we're talking about New Zealand and New Zealand culture, and obviously we're talking about the Polynesian culture. So at least I'll be excited for that part. The match itself, maybe I might be scrolling through TikTok if you will, while that's happening. But my team to watch, it's going to be Benfica. I think once again, similar to what I said about Porto, they have a lot to prove for themselves. They were the team, they were the runner-ups, right? They were the bridesmaid this year in Portugal. So I think that they want to make sure that they can represent Portugal, right? When it comes to UEFA, in some aspect, the Portuguese league doesn't get necessarily their moment in the sun, if you will. And we get 2 of them here in this competition. So I think that they're going to want to be able to represent Portugal very well, especially because the team that lifted the cup, they're not in here. So I'm sure their fans are bragging about that to the Sporting fans. So I think that Benfica, I think there's some people that are like, oh, they're going to have to go against Boca Juniors. Maybe that's an equal match. I don't think so. I think Benfica is going to make sure everybody knows who they are by the end of this competition.
I like it. I love the love for the Portuguese league. I think that's one of the few European leagues that always gets overlooked. It's very rare to overlook a European league, but if there's one that I think is just like a easy it gets overlooked. It's Portugal, because they are constantly putting in a team into the Champions League, into the knockout stages of the Champions League, and potentially knocking out teams in the Champions League. And this is another situation where now you have two teams from Portugal getting an opportunity. I agree with you. I think Benfica is a good team to watch. However, it's not my team to watch. I did mention Boca Juniors. I don't think there's any reason why that's not my team to watch, other than I couldn't think of another reason not to pick them. So look, Boca Juniors is a fun team, an Argentinian team with a legacy. Argentinian teams in international club tournaments, they have a knack of making noise. They've done it in the past World Cup editions, and they're going to continue to do so. This is kind of a group set up for them. Outside of Bayern, I do think they can compete enough with Benfica to potentially, as Nick said, get a 10-0 scoreline against an Auckland City that could potentially advance them on just the nature of a 1-1 draw versus Benfica and a not-so-bad loss against Bayern and a big win against Auckland City. And that could be where Auckland City comes into the whole play here, is maybe they, and I hate to say this because they're a professional team and they apply their trade professionally, but maybe they're the team that gets thrown to the wolves, if you will, and is going to be used to make a point or maybe get through on a decision day. So for me, Boca Juniors is that team to watch, but it's because I think there's a sneaky potential for them to get through. And look, legacy teams, it's hard to not root for them. Now, moving from Group C to Group D, this one is full of drama, and not just because Chelsea's in here. It is Chelsea, ES Tunis from Tunisia, Flamengo, and LAFC. This is the one I talked about in the intro. Club Leon. We'll talk about it right here. Let's just rip the Band-Aid on. Club Leon was the team that was supposed to be in the group. They were the team that qualified initially. Due to various reasons, Hector, I'm going to let you go into that. They were removed and LAFC replaced them. Now, Hector, can you explain a little bit about what happened to Club Leon?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, one of the many flaws with Liga MX, it's that there's a lot of multi-owned clubs in that league. So for Club Leon's situation, they are part of the ownership group for Pachuca. And Pachuca is also competing in this tournament. And FIFA has a rule, apparently, that clubs that are owned by other clubs cannot compete in the same competition, which obviously that kind of draws like a real gray area when you think of the MLS as far as how their ownership works. Yep. In that case, behind that logic. But Club Leon, they tried to fight it. They, and it's an unfortunate thing because, we would have had the likes of James Rodriguez competing in this if it wasn't for that case. But they tried to make an appeal. FIFA denied it once again. And the decision was to have LAFC, the team that lost to Club Leon in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final, versus Globo America, the highest ranked CONCACAF club in the region. Mm-hmm. And somehow LAFC won. So that's why they're here. And I'm also pretty shocked because if I needed someone to represent CONCACAF as best as humanly possible, as much as I despise Globo America, we needed Globo America here to be the positive for CONCACAF.
Yeah, the Mexican national club team, by the way, is my nickname for Club America. I'm kidding. Please don't come after me, Liga MX fans, Club America fans. I'm just kidding. I promise. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. We'll find out. Nick, what are your thoughts on LAFC getting the plug here? Do you think it was a good call? Do you think Hector's right? Do you think it should have been Club America? Or should you think they maybe should have gone another route, maybe given it to an outside CONCACAF nation, potentially?
I like LAFC. I think the branding of them and kind of the notoriety, I think FIFA wants brands and names, and I think LAFC is a big brand in CONCACAF recently just because, Los Angeles, and it seems like their fans seem a little more like underground, like soccer fans are in different countries, rather than LA Galaxy feels like a historic fan base, where LAFC feels like a new up and comer. So I like the LAFC shout.
All right. I like it. By the way, Carlos Vela is their new ambassador, by the way, coming back to the club. Getting more love from an American team than he ever got from the Mexican national team. Just leave it at that. But yeah, looking at this group, I think it's safe to say we all look at Chelsea as the favorites. Does anybody vocally disagree with that?
No.
Okay. is that everybody's team to watch? I know it's my team to watch. Is that your guys' team to watch, or do we really need to like belay this
No,
this
you
group
can-
at all? All right. Everybody's team to watch is Chelsea. It's an obvious. We don't know what to expect from them, but we expect them to not be able to blow it against ES Tuni. If they do, you better believe we're talking about that. And we're going to spend 30 minutes on that alone and how bad Chelsea is. Hector, you can make fun of Chelsea for as long as you want that day, because I know I will as a Liverpool fan.
I don't know, man. I'm kind of high on this Chelsea team. I think things are clicking now at Chelsea. So as much as I don't like to say that, and I love to troll Young Kepa as much as I humanly can, unfortunately, I think they found the recipe now. After spending almost the whole grocery store to figure out the right ingredient to make this team good, it's finally clicking. This team looks pretty fluid, and yeah, Cole Palmer's officially their 10. So and that's a good name to keep an eye on. So I think Chelsea is a team to really don't sleep on them. We made a lot of jokes these past couple of years because of all that's been going on with Todd Bowley, but things are clicking now at Chelsea, and yeah, it's not funny anymore.
It's still kind of funny, I'll be honest.
Kind of funny still.
Yeah, I still make fun of them. Also, their badge still is a stupid color. I don't get whether it's pink, orange, or anything else. And why is it orange? You guys are gold. It's blue and gold. Stop trying to make it different, Chelsea. Also, Enzo Fernandez is a Chelsea player. I'm trying to find out if he did get called up. I do believe he did. Yeah, he is. Does he get another red card? Just real quick, raise of hands, yes or no?
It's not outside of the realm of possibility.
He is playing in America. You never know. All right, Group E. This one is going to be a very interesting one. Inter Milan, the real Inter, Internazionale Milan, Monterrey, River Plate, and the Japanese team whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce because I am going to butcher it. So we're just going to call them the Other Reds. And that is the team from Japan. Okay, I'm going to say it. Okay, nope, I'm not. I'm going with the Reds. We're going with the Reds, guys.
Urawa Diamonds.
There you go. Yeah, that one, Red Diamonds. Even after you said it, I can't copy you. This is like the worst combination of phonetic sounds together for me. So, guys, I'm gonna rip the Band-Aid off and say that is also my team to watch, because I don't want to continue going down this line of me not being able to pronounce the team name later on. They're my team to watch, so I'm just gonna get that out of the way. I just think Japanese teams are fun to watch, and they are one of the better recent Japanese teams. And they're a country of soccer athletes where they come out very technical, maybe not the most athletic, but they are structured. They have great organization, and they have great ability to dominate play back and forth. So that's why they're my team to watch. Now I'm going to pass it to you guys and let you guys not mention the same team, so I don't have to say the same team name again. Nick, I'm going to go to you. Who is your team to watch, and kind of where are you looking at in this group as kind of a highlight potentially?
I say Inter Milan because it's going to be hot in America. They're going to be tired. They're old. And how are they really going to like adapt to all of this like style of the tournament? And like, are they going to still have that Champions League in the back of their mind? I don't even know who they haven't even hired a new manager. They lost their manager. Their stock is trending down. And I want to see if they use this tournament as like a final, like we're going to hit rock bottom, which I think they probably will. Or are we going to use this as a bounce back and let's go use this as like a good preseason type of warm up and then hit Serie A running and try to win the Italian league?
Damn. No, that's fair. Inter Milan then for you. Okay. Now, Hector, they are old. Inter Milan. They are an old team. Nick hits the nail on the head there. Is that going to be enough for you to watch them, or are you not caring about Inter Milan at all? You think they're going to take the top of this group and you got somebody else in mind?
I think at the end of the day, Inter Milan's going to be a strong team. You got Lautaro Martinez, man. Like the team, the team is clicking. I look that what happened in the Champions League. It's unfortunate, but if anything, everybody now has kind of an idea on how to. I mean, it wasn't shocking. You press high, counter quickly, move the ball quick, and you can probably expose them. I think we all saw that from that amazing semifinal against Barcelona, which weirdly enough both played almost the same type of high press. But yeah. Which is why they were able to expose each other pretty quickly. But I'm picking Monterrey. I think Monterrey, once again, their fan base is very strong. They're going to be they're definitely one of the more popular teams in Mexico. Obviously, Tigres fans, I'm not trying to ignore you. I know you guys have a strong fan base as well. But the region of Monterrey, they're also cross-city rivals. But yeah, Monterrey Rayados, it's a strong fan base. And if you want to throw more icing on top of that cake, you got Sergio Ramos. This is why they brought Sergio Ramos in. They were one of the better teams in Liga MX last year. Even unfortunately, they had to get eliminated by the eventual champions Toluca. But one of the better defensive teams and one of the second best attacking team in the Clausura this past season. I think that they're going to be a really good team, and with that fan base, it's almost going to be like they have home field advantage every single match.
That's a fair point. Honestly, raise your hand if you forgot Sergio Ramos was in Mexico. Yeah, I did until about a month ago, and then I remember seeing a video of him, and I was like, "Oh yeah, he's here." I forgot about that.
I think I saw the same video.
Yeah,
it was about how much he's getting paid, and like they bought him a house.
Yeah, the amount of money that man is getting paid to hang out in Monterrey. Let's just say I've seen drug dealers get less when they hide away, because that dude he's making out like a bandit. Yeah, I mean, he's still a good player. He's still athletic. He's still one of the most dominant defenders to ever play. And I still loved him better as a left back than center back, and I'll die on that hill. But anyways, we'll move away from him for a minute. Recapping, Hector, you're going for Monterrey for your team to watch. Nick, Inter Milan, and I am going with the Red Diamonds, because we're not going to try to pronounce that beginning name. The team from Japan, the Rising Sun. All right, we're moving to Group F to some teams that I recognize very well. There is Borussia Dortmund. You have Fluminense and Mamelodi Sundowns out of, man, where are they out of again?
Egypt.
South Africa.
Oh, South Africa. My bad.
Yep, the Republic of South Africa. And then Ulsan, who is a South Korean team. It's actually Hyundai Ulsan is their full name. Used to have a different logo and colors. They used to be green and yellow. I used to use them on FIFA all the time. But this group might be one of this to me is the one I look at as the most even for 3 out of the 4 teams. I think Mamelodi is the team where you look at as like, all right, you guys made it here. Congratulations. I don't know if we're seeing 2010 South Africa World Cup levels of surprise from South Africa potentially making a noise. But I do say that there are some teams here that can get got. And outside of, I really don't think Dortmund is that team, but they also show a inefficiency offensively. So maybe they do. Hector, let's start with you. Is Dortmund going to win it all? Are they win the group, or are they your team to watch, or are you going somewhere else for your team to watch?
No, it is Dortmund. I think Dortmund has turned it around since firing Nuri Sahin. I think they went from being in the mid part of the table to getting that final Champions League spot. That is a tremendous turnaround from where they were looking. So that's credit to their coaching staff and also credit to their players. Look, I feel like Dortmund's just going back to their identity, which is finding young talent and developing them well and making them stars. And I mean, and bringing in seasoned players that know what to do, which is why they had a tremendous season with Girassi. I think once again, it's guys that we don't know who they are, but then they are, and that's exactly what it is from this Dortmund team. So I think this Dortmund team is very much they're going back to what they used to be, and I think that don't sleep on this team. I think I'm labeling them as a dark horse for this entire tournament. I think that they could, and also a lot of people here in the U.S. love Borussia Dortmund. So I think that is another thing to keep an eye on. It is a solid hipster pick when it comes to Borussia Dortmund. They have great kits. I'm not going to deny it. So I think that that's going to be a lot to be looking forward to when it comes to Borussia Dortmund. I think that they're very much going to be a menace in this competition.
By the way, shout out to your co-host Edward, as our closest Dortmund fan that we know all too well. Maybe Robert Lewandowski. I still stand by he was more of a Lewandowski fan than he was a Dortmund fan, but he still rooted for them and Marco Reus. So shout out to him. He's been through some tough times recently, even though they still make it to Champions Leagues, like casually. Now, Nick, are you also looking at Dortmund, or are you looking somewhere else here for this group as the team to watch?
I agree with Hector. I'm still with I'm looking at Dortmund mainly because just like Inter, they could use this kind of Club World Cup as a ramp to get ready for this season and possibly challenge for the title in their domestic league. And I also just think Dortmund, like Bayern, those German teams haven't played in a while. So those players are probably some of the more well-rested players. And I, again, agreeing with Hector, I think they're a dark horse. I think I wouldn't be surprised to look up and see them in the semifinals or even the final.
Okay. By the way, speaking of Americans that we won't talk about in the next half, Gio Reyna is on the Club World Cup roster for Dortmund. Surprise, surprise. He will be rocking number 7.
He's not playing.
Yeah, I know. He probably will be replaced by one person who has a brother that will also be in this tournament. That's Joe Bellingham. If we talk about another Bellingham moving their way up, rocking 77, Job is getting a lot of hate right now on social media as he was in the champion English championship. I believe he was in on a transfer. Now transferring back to Dortmund. So no surprise, he's back with Dortmund, where also Jude was from, where he grew up and played the most. So
I think I just want to point this out. I think it's hilarious that he decided not to have Bellingham on his back. He decided to put Job because he said, I don't want to use his name, which is funny because it's his name. He is a Bellingham. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, they're brothers. Like,
what name were you wanting to not be represented by? So,
like, I get Virgil. Like when Van Dijk plays for the Netherlands, he puts Virgil on, and because he has a story about why he doesn't use his dad's name. But in this case, you have a great family life. You're a great family. You get along with your brothers. Just put Bellingham on the back of the jersey. You're not wearing number 5. We're good. Like, nobody cares now. But yeah, so Job will be in there. Maybe a potential brotherly matchup later on down the road. We'll see. For me, it's Fluminense. I'm going again with another Brazilian team who is a feeder team into a lot of other teams. Also brings back a lot of its old talent to play yet again on a world stage. So Fluminense is my team to watch because why not? Somebody's got to be the second team in this group. Why not a team from Brazil? Just makes sense. All right, Group G. Moving into the second to last group, we are in with Al Ain, Juventus, Man City, so Manchester City, and Wydad AC. So looking at this group, guys, I don't know if we want to beleaguer this one. There's two really obvious powerhouses here. I tried to be nice to the other two squads, but Juventus and Man City should be the top 2 favorites. Do you see it any other way? Do you see a potential that they stumble along the way? No. Fair enough. I do, just because I want to be a contrarian. I did put my team to watch as Al Ain, only because I've used their jersey and badge in FIFA my whole life, ever since they got added to the game, because I love the purple and gold motif. But yeah, I'm with you guys also. Man City, Juventus, good luck trying to knock those two down. Not only is their first team fantastic, but their second squads and their third squads and their fourth squads they could bring in. Oh, and by the way, their academy, still better in leagues above most top division teams outside of the Big 5 leagues. So tough to beat either one of those squads, unless they just don't care. But I doubt that. As Hector mentioned, the money matters and Man City needs the money. Moving into the final group. Respect Wydad AC. Yep. Not doing that one. Final group, Group H. We are looking at Al Hilal, Pachuca, as we talked about earlier. They are remaining while Leon got kicked. Hector's team, Real Madrid, and RB Salzburg. All right, let's rip the Band-Aid off here. Nick, tell me why Real Madrid is not going to be the team that gets out of this group. I'm just kidding. Hector might lose his mind if we actually started there. But Nick, who is your team to watch here? Is it going to be one of the big squads here, Real Madrid, Salzburg, Pachuca, or will it be an Al Hilal?
It's Al Hilal. If you look at their squad, it's not like filled with these like old, like kind of washed up European players like some of the Saudi leagues have, or teams have kind of targeted. They've got a nice balance. They got Mitrovic up top, Koulibaly at the back, and then Bonu, the Moroccan goalie who kind of balled out at the last World Cup. So their team's kind of balanced, and it's the only Saudi team in this, if I'm not mistaken. And they got the big Saudi project last summer, and this is kind of, let's see how good you guys are. Their manager is Muhammad Al Shalhoub. He is a Saudi Arabian. He is not one of, like, if you look at all the managers in Saudi Arabia, a lot of them are like kind of coaches you would know, European coaches. So it is my reason to watch them is this is his kind of, you know, audition for a big, maybe not a big, but a different, maybe a European job or a Spanish job.
Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, I love seeing these type of things in these tournaments. This, like Nick, you hit the nail on the head. I love seeing a team from a country that's not a Big Five country. They're not a Big Five league. They're not even the MLS. They're not Brazil. They're a team, and Brazil does this as well with their teams. Mexico is really big about this. They have homegrown coaches, homegrown squads with small numbers of internationals. Now, the Saudi league is what it is, right? It's a money league. You can feed in what you want to in that league. However, Al Hilal is one of the few that doesn't do that every time. They do it with the right positions. Like we see it all the time in the MLS. Hector, you and I have talked about it on Insert MFC all the time. MLS does it all the time. It's a retirement league. It's the retirement pasture of the world in a lot of cases. The Saudi league is the almost retirement pasture where it's just go get my money and get out. It's what the Chinese league used to be when they were paying everybody like Oscar and these young talented players to come there. That's what the Saudi league is now. This is one of the few that you don't see that. It's refreshing, but it is a chance where Saudi Arabia has, and we will talk about here in a minute when we get into the Gold Cup, they're a country that is looking to make international waves as well. And this is how they do it, is they get a team in a tournament like this to go up against world-class competition and showcase what is Saudi football at the end of the day. And that matters in a lot of different cases for a future of a sport, of the world sport, in a country that has historically not gotten that love in that sport. So I love everything you just said about why you picked Al Hilal as your team to watch, because I do think it matters in a lot of cases seeing those homegrown type of programs and what is the essence of Saudi football. That's going to matter in a lot of cases. Now, I say all that to say, Hector, I know who your team to watch is, and it's obviously not going to be Real Madrid, right? There's no chance.
It is Real Madrid. No, but this is a very interesting point right now for Real Madrid. Obviously, they moved off from Carlo Ancelotti. He's now managing Brazil, which now Brazil looks like a team. Yeah. Crazy how that happened. And I guess now eyeing to be the first coach not from the country to win a World Cup. So we'll see what happens there with them for him. But obviously last year was just a bizarre year for Real Madrid, but also they're not known for repeating league titles. But
yeah,
I think it was a weird year. And anyone that tries to blame Mbappe, I mean, the guy balled out. I mean, there's no real, saying that he didn't. He was the all-time leading goal scorer this season across all European leagues. So you can't take that and say that it was his fault. It was just a disastrous year with injuries in the back line. But at the end of the day, excuses are excuses. But to lose somebody like Ancelotti, but then gain a Xabi Alonso is very impactful, very significant. And Real Madrid has been very active in the transfer market. Already gained Trent Alexander-Arnold. I used to be hesitant on him a bit, but in Xabi Alonso's system, it makes the most sense in the world.
Yeah.
You go get Huijsen from Bournemouth, a standout from Bournemouth this past season. You took somebody from a team that's competing in this Club World Cup from River Plate, Mastroeni, I think his name that's his name. I don't know if he's competing in this, but they've been very active, and apparently they're not done. They're still going to make signings, and I think that this Real Madrid team is going to look very different. Xabi Alonso has made it very clear that defense is going to be on everybody in this team. So we're going to see how much he can change in this competition. Real Madrid, who needs a trophy at the end of the day, because they don't want to come out empty-handed with this year. I'm still counting this as 24-25. So if they can come out big and be the big winners the first time Club World Cup champions, it's that Florentino Perez will never shut up about it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. First time anything, especially for Real Madrid, just seems to go together in a lot of cases. It makes sense that they could be a favorite here. I do love Xabi Alonso as a Liverpool fan. He was the first player I ever got to really watch and love everything about him. I still remember sitting there watching a game against Real Madrid, ironically, where he hit a free kick into the near post from like 40 out on a scrub kick. It was literally just a goofy you know what? The goalkeeper's out. I'm just going to put it in the net. But it was fantastic. He'll forever be one of my fans. Funny you say defense, though, and they did get Trent Alexander-Arnold. Not sure how that's going to work for you. But you know what? Good luck.
It's a system.
Yeah,
Trust the system.
Yeah, system. Yeah, he's going to be the guy that gets his teammates to guard for him, a lot like people complain about Steph Curry in the NBA.
He speaks Spanish. He spoke very fluent Spanish.
He does speak Spanish. I do love me some Trent. I'm never going to lie. I actually am a big Trent fan. I'm glad to see him go, though.
It took Bale 8 years to say hola, but Trent Alexander-Arnold goes ahead and does a full speech about how happy he is to be at Real Madrid.
It took Gareth Bale 8 years to learn how to say hola, but it took him 5 minutes to learn how to say una más cerveza, por favor. So
more like one more round of golf, please.
Yeah, well, this in his case beer, but yeah, it turned into golf quickly. Now I picked Red Bull Salzburg, and not because any other reason on the field other than the fact they are actually banned from using their real team name in FIFA competition. If in case anybody didn't know, they are banned from using Red Bull Salzburg in their name. They have to change. So if we can pull up the graphic again with the teams on it, you'll see it says FC Salzburg.
Oh.
And the reason why is because you are not allowed to have a corporate sponsorship in the team name in the Champions League, which is why going back a couple groups to Ulsan, why it's Ulsan and not Hyundai Ulsan, is because you can't have Hyundai in the name. Despite Hyundai being also a city, they are also sponsored by Hyundai, so they couldn't use it in the name. So, fun fact for everybody, Red Bull Salzburg can't be Red Bull Salzburg. They are Salzburg FC in the tournament. Or I think FC Salzburg is what they're actually going by out of the Austrian league. But yeah, why not? They're going to be my team to watch because I just thought that was a really fun fact. And Real Madrid seems to be winning this division or winning this group anyway. So I was just like, whatever. This will be a fun pick. Now, guys, I want to ask a question going back and looking at all of our groups. What is your group of death? Right now, the world says Group B. But do you guys agree with that? Do you think Group B is the group of death? Or who do you guys have as your group of death? Nick, I want to start with you. Who is your group of death?
Let me look over the groups one more time to see if I can get a little.
So Group B,
I would say
the world knows, has PSG
group,
and Atletico.
I would say Group A, because with Group A, I could see those three Inter Miami, Palmeiras, Porto, and then Al Ahly. I could see, any of those teams qualifying at least second. Mm-hmm. And with the Group B, I kind of just think it's going to be Atletico and PSG. Even though I thought, Atletico might have a stumble, but I think their quality is just higher than those other two teams in their group, where Group A seems a little more like the talent is even.
Yeah, I agree with that. Hector, what about you? What is Group B your group of death? Are you going with the world or are you going somewhere else?
I think it's Group B.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Group B. I think with Inter Milan there, you have River Plate, and then you have Monterrey. I think those are three really good.
Yeah.
Group E, yeah. So those are really good teams. And once again, we don't know what's coming from the Red Diamonds. I think that this is a good mixture of teams, especially different styles. So I think that this could be a really good group. It might be a tough competition to see who really does come out of that group. And I mean, it's like people are saying Inter Milan is old, but who knows what happens here. But I think that it is going to be a lot more competitive in this group. And I mean, with Group B, who's coming out of that group.
Yeah.
And so I think with the Group B, I think that there's still some sort of mystery of who will be coming out of that group.
I like that as a call out. Well, that's going to lead us into our predictions for these groups. Guys, we'll start with Group A. We just talked about, Nick, you talked about Porto being one of those squads. Can we all agree that Porto is a team that's going to make it out of this group? Can we all just agree on that first? Does everybody say yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Who is your second team that's going to make it out of this group? Hector, we'll go to you first.
Palmeiras.
Okay. I'm also riding with the Palmeiras train. Nick, who's your second team that makes it out of this group?
Inter Miami.
Okay. So you're going with the hope. You're riding the Messi making a
wave. I am.
So
I'm not even a Messi stan. I just want I think this will get the most eyeballs, and I think this will get the most people engaged if Inter Miami go crazy.
There's a ton of pressure right now. I think if you're Inter Miami, there's been rumors of potentially getting Mascherano sacked. I think that there's Messi stopped having discussions for the contract negotiation to extend with Inter Miami. There is a lot on this Club World Cup for them that they need to pick it up, get it together, because they have been very overwhelming in these past couple past couple MLS matches. So I think that there is a lot of pressure. They have something on the line, and you know what? If they do not make it out of this group, we could be seeing a very big slippery slope happening over at Miami. And I think the Messi project could be potentially over if that's the case.
Yeah, and it's been, if you ask me, I think it's been about its time, right? It's been long enough. For a lot of these experiments we see in the MLS, it's 3 seasons is mostly what we get out of a player before we see them move on. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is season 3 of the Messi experience. So maybe season 4. It depends on where you split the gap, but yeah,
I mean,
it is.
like 2.5. But I mean,
Yeah,
so,
it's probably around like 2.5. But this is his third season. Like, he's played
yeah.
in 3 of these things.
So because the first year, obviously, it was split the way it was. It was weird. So yeah, this is kind of how it works in the MLS. But I like Nik riding with the pick here. I'm gonna love that. But Hector and I, Porto and Palmeiras, Nik, Porto, and Inter Miami. All right, Group B. Does anybody need to say anything other than Atletico Madrid and PSG?
No.
All right, I think we've all made our point there. Group C. I'm gonna ask the same question. Bayern, Benfica. Anybody else have any qualms?
No.
Oh man, you guys are making this easy. Group D. There's got to be somebody different than Chelsea, right? No, Flamengo. All right, Chelsea, Flamengo. It is, guys. We are putting the Flamengos, not the Flamingos, the Flamengos, through to the group to the knockout rounds. Group E. I believe there's going to be some differences here, guys. Inter Milan is in this group. How do you guys feel about Inter Milan making out? Does everybody have Inter Milan making it through to the next round, to the knockout stages?
Yes.
No, this is my hot take. They don't make it out of the state. This is my biggest hot take. They don't make it out of the group.
Okay, all right. So Hector and I have them going through. Nick says no. Now, Nick, who do you have going through then?
I have River and Monterrey.
Ooh, okay. So Argentinian and Mexican flair to it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Hector, I'm going to ask you. He picked 2 teams that I have potentially as that number 2 team. I got to imagine you went with one of them as a number 2, right?
I have Monterrey.
Monterrey, okay. Wow, we went all different here, guys. I went with River Plate. So I have Inter and River going through.
I think this proves my point that Group B is the group of death.
Yeah, I agree. I think Group E is a very interesting one because
Definitely.
Inter is old, and that's a great equalizer in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Argentinian Mexican sides kind of combat each other pretty evenly, and we don't know what we're going to get out of Japan.
Yeah, it could be insanity and they're in the round of 16, or it could be like they didn't get a point.
And then once again, Monterrey, give them credit, man. They're gonna have home field advantage.
True.
So.
True.
That's very true. All right, so guys, we all have a mix there. Group E. Now Group F with Dortmund. Everybody have Dortmund going through.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Who's your second team?
Fluminense.
All right,
Fluminense.
everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, all right, all 3 of us, Dortmund, Fluminense, as the Group F advancing teams. Group G, City and Juventus. Now we all band together on the City not making it train, right? Yeah, no, City makes it.
No.
City, Juventus, no chance. Anybody else? All right, Group H. Hector, I'm going to let you take the reins on Group H. I don't think I need to say anything for this one.
It's Real Madrid, man. Real Madrid's going to take the group. I have Al Hilal coming in second.
Okay. Nick, what about you?
Same as Hector, Real Madrid, Al Hilal.
All right. I like it. I also have Real Madrid, but then I have my team to watch because of the name hilarity, and I think it would just be so funny to see them advance and continue to have to use this FC Salzburg name and not let it be said on the air because they can't legally say it on air because of the contract as well, by the way.
Wow.
Because it doesn't work with their drink sponsor.
So
they cannot call out the Red Bull.
So do they have to also change the badge like on the kid?
Yeah, the badge on the kid. So for Champions League and for FIFA competitions, it has to be the FC Salzburg League. But in Austrian play, it is RB Salzburg.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So this gets really interesting. So they losing out on branding money here, despite the team being in an international competition. And I just think it would be hilarious to see Red Bull struggle because of Salzburg making it through to the knockout stage. So Salzburg.
Well,
and Real
I
Madrid
mean,
for me.
the sponsorship will still be on the kid, the Red Bull.
Oh well, yes. The Red Bull, yeah, the Red Bull sponsorship on the kit will still be there. but they won't be allowed to call out the fact that
RB
of why
Salzburg.
the name is. Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it gets fun. All right, guys, that'll do it for the first half. That was a long one. That's a lot of teams to get through. That's 32 teams. But we're not done. We just reached the halftime whistle. There was some injury stoppage time. We had to let it go. There was a streaker on the field. You know what? We're going into the second half.
Few penalties. Neymar milked an injury.
Yeah, this was the 12-minute added stoppage time times 10.
They had to get the ball out of the stands. They only had one ball.
Yeah, none of them were inflated. The normal CONCACAF things, right?
The Bayern Munich player that pushed the ball boy from Inter Milan.
Oh yeah, don't forget about that one. Ooh. All right, so that's gonna take us into the second half. I can't get that picture out of my mind now. All right, now we're gonna go into the Gold Cup, guys. The Gold Cup. Let's recap it. Right, we've gone through the 32 team tournament. This is much smaller. 16 teams in the Gold Cup. All CONCACAF nations but one, Saudi Arabia, as we've mentioned in the lead on. If you haven't stuck with us for that long, my apologies. Welcome back. Glad to have you. Now, the Gold Cup is all international flavor. We just talked clubs. There are 32 teams from 81 countries. Forget that. That's out the window. There are 16 teams from 16 countries, and this is what we have to look forward to. There's obviously the big three, Mexico, Canada, USA, not playing for any competitive competition here other than a Gold Cup trophy. But it doesn't matter for them World Cup rankings. They are just playing matches to try to learn. We have teams like Suriname. We have teams like Guadeloupe. Teams that don't normally make it. By the way, Guadeloupe, very fun story here. Actually, technically speaking, FIFA only recognizes them under the France banner. However, they are a CONCACAF competition nation, thus allowing them to compete in CONCACAF tournaments. So, very unique situation. Not technically a FIFA recognized country. However, they are a CONCACAF recognized country. Make that make sense? I'll never understand. Money talks, I guess. But Guadeloupe will be playing. All their players do play in League 1 or League 2. And so that's going to be an interesting watch. Well, what do they do? Didn't have a great build up to this tournament, that's for sure. So these teams are going to be broken down into 4 groups. And then the invitee, Saudi Arabia, is also added to this. Saudi Arabia just trying to get more games. Now, they do split up Mexico, Canada, the United States, and Panama, because Panama is the 4th highest ranked CONCACAF squad. So they split them as the top seed in every group. From there, they pull out of a pool. Those pools get assigned. It's a mess. Getting to the Gold Cup is a mess in CONCACAF. Like everything in CONCACAF seems to be a mess when it comes to qualifying. Don't even get me started on their actual World Cup qualifying system. It's a joke. Anyways, in the Gold Cup, guys, there's a lot to watch. We did a lot of build-up early on. Looking at this tournament and its host cities, there are quite a few. Hector, earlier you mentioned a lot of California and Texas, and that's why we didn't see them in the Club World Cup. Here in the Gold Cup, you get a lot of Texas teams. You have Dallas, you have Houston twice, both NRG and Shell Energy Stadium, so where the Dynamo play. You have Los Angeles, you have SoFi and Dignity Health Sports Park, which is where the LA Galaxy play. And then you have SoFi, which is where the LA Rams play. San Francisco and Levi Stadium, Minneapolis in the actual dome, Glendale, Arizona, Las Vegas, Nevada, one Canadian stadium in Vancouver, San Diego, St. Louis, Soccer Specific Stadium, St. Louis, by the way, Austin, Soccer Specific Stadium in Austin, and San Jose, Soccer Specific Stadium. Multiple soccer specific stadiums getting tested for the Gold Cup, but not in the Club World Cup. I kind of love this idea. Do you guys have any takes from these cities? Obviously, these cities are what they are by nature. This is usually where they always play some sort of tournament. Do either of you have a favorite or a least favorite? Hector, you can't pick Houston. That's the only rule.
I mean, it's the final. It's decided for the final. But look, when it comes to it, CONCACAF needs to try their best to make sure they get their best bang for their buck. And obviously, getting Texas, California, Arizona, and Nevada was crucial for them, especially when you know how much Mexico fills the seats up in those stadiums. So I think that was one, just maybe that's where when CONCACAF and FIFA were trying to figure out who gets what, and they just said, just give me Texas and give me California, just give me the West Coast, and we're good. don't worry about it. And they said okay, and I think that benefits them. At least they're guaranteed wherever Mexico's going to play, it's going to be a full. It doesn't really matter. They could be playing in East Hartford, Connecticut, and it's going to get packed with Mexicans. Like it just that's what. Once again, Mexican fans, they know how to show out for their team. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, I think that. But as far as the stadiums go, man, like since I can't pick Houston,
I was kidding. You could pick Houston if you wanted to, but that feels boring.
You know what? I'm gonna say Nevada. I think Allegiant Stadium is really appealing stadium. I think it does pull out a really good crowd. I love the way the stadium is designed. So I think that I can't wait to see the matches that are gonna be played there. I'm sure we're gonna see L3 there at some point. So yeah, it's a really good place, and I think it's a good travel destination. And I think when it comes to World Cup, it's gonna be an appealing location to go to.
Oh, for sure. That's also a spaceship stadium, by the way. If anybody's never been there, that thing is insane. Nick, do you have a stadium here that you're excited to see some games played that maybe doesn't normally get them, or maybe you're excited to see a soccer-specific stadium get some love?
I'm glad as many soccer-specific stadiums are getting as much love as they can get, because I feel like more soccer-specific stadiums should be prominent in these tournaments rather than these big NFL football stadiums. San Jose is my local team. I'm in the Bay Area. I still haven't decided if I'm going to go to Sunday's game, USA Trinidad Tobago. When I checked, the prices were kind of expensive for a team that just lost 4-0 to Switzerland and not their A team. So I'll still see. I'm going to check up until Saturday to see if I want to go. But yeah, definitely San Jose Stadium. They have a really nice stadium. No bad seats in that stadium.
That's fair. That is PayPal Park, I believe, is what
Yes.
it's called. Yeah, very cool stadium. It's one of the older American MLS soccer-specific stadiums. They did used to play, by the way, in Oakland early on days in the earthquake days. So I love that call. I'm actually a big fan of the fact they threw in a Canadian stadium for once. Like, thank you for getting BC Place played in here. One of my favorite stadiums in all of MLS, BC Place, is kind of a fun. I don't know. I always found it interesting. Feels like it's always empty though. That's the downside to the BC Place. It's so big. It's so expansive. It does.
It's Tropicana field. It's the same feel. It's the same feeling that
without
I get
the hurricane.
Yeah,
without the hurricane.
It has a removable roof that's actually supposed to be removable.
Just don't have an event there during a monster truck rally. That's all. Apparently, it's a big no over there.
Oh, the MLS scheduling problems. Anyways, all right, guys, let's dive right into these groups, huh? Group A. Let's start out with, well, that's their nation right there. That is Mexico. Number one team in Group A. They are matching up against Costa Rica, Suriname, and Dominican Republic. All right, guys. We're going to hold off on players to watch for this one until the very end. I'm just going to ask you the general players to watch. But right here in Group A, who's your team to watch? Let's start right there. Hector, I'll let you go second. So, Nick, you can go first on this one.
I said Mexico. They've got their A team. They've got a manager who I feel like is ready to work with these guys. And I think they're probably the favorites as even though I'm a USA fan, they have to be listed as the favorites, and they want to probably put on a good show as they always try to do in the US. So yeah, Mexico.
Okay. Hector, are you also going with L3?
I'm gonna go different. I'm gonna say Costa Rica. I think Keylor Navas decided that he's finally gonna compete in this. Maybe a day late, or maybe a day late and a buck short, but he's still the top quality player. Obviously, he still plays over right now, currently playing for Newell's Old Boys. But I think Costa Rica is a very interesting team. I think at one point, remember, Canada wasn't a thing for a long time. It was always USA, Mexico, and Costa Rica. Probably not in that order either. So I think it's going to be important. Costa Rica is in a very important position right now where they can finally flip the script and be back in the conversation. One of the best teams in Central America. You have your GOAT in Keylor Navas being a leader, and you have undeniably one of the best guys to rally around as a manager in Miguel Herrera at Piojo. So, I think that a guy that has a lot of familiarity with Mexico, by the way. So I think that they have to showcase what they can do and make sure that they have really accomplished the rebuild.
Okay, I like it. By the way, Hector, I don't know if it was planned, but I also picked Costa Rica, and my exact reason was Keylor Navas was the reason why he was my team to watch. Maybe it's something with you and I getting together on a show and having Keylor Navas conversations. Maybe we're going to end up getting hated by half of the world yet again on another.
No, none of us said he was world class, so I mean we're good.
All right, sorry. Keylor Navas, world class Keylor Navas. Sorry, let me get that out of the way. But no, I do agree. I think Costa Rica is still a squad looking to rebuild. By the way, shout out Josh Mahler for rising to the occasion. Former Belly Up friend and still great friend of the network and all of us here. Love you, Josh. Thanks for tuning in. But Costa Rica is a team where you look at that they're looking to regain something, much like we talked with Mexico in the last Gold Cup cycle. They were trying to regain something. Well, they've regained that, and it looks great. Don't know how I feel about the black and gold uniforms yet. I'm still half and half on those. Don't hate them. Don't necessarily love them yet. But I do think Costa Rica, on the other hand, has a chance to regain something here with a Mexican team in the same group. So it's hard to pick against either one of those two teams, especially with Suriname and the Dominican Republic. I wish them the best of luck. Is the best way I can say that. But I think Mexico and Costa Rica are the two teams to watch here. I love the fact that you guys both picked Mexico. Now, going into Group B, we move into Canada. Playing without Alphonso Davies due to injury, / being kept out, / Club World Cup. Take your pick at what reason they're using this time. Whatever. You're also dealing with Honduras, El Salvador, and Curacao. By the way, didn't know Honduras changed their flag colors, but they did change their flag colors.
It's always been that color.
Oh, sure. That's what they claim. But it definitely was a dark blue on every single digital format.
No, there's a lot of versions of the Honduran flag, but traditionally it is that color.
Now, see, this is why I'm glad Hector is here, because Hector, I'm going to let you have your moment in the sun here. I'm not going to say anything about any of these other teams until you have your moment here to talk about your beloved.
Oh man, dude! As a Salvadorian right now, I'm really conflicted with this team. But they bring in a great coach. I think a guy that was actually the coach for Panama when they made it to the World Cup, has a lot of experience with CONCACAF. So I think we brought the right guy that can. And I mean, this team looks very much different with him. I think at one point we were drawing or turning wins into ties and turning ties into losses at one point, and it was a down bad period to the point where I was just like, I can't believe we even let Guatemala catch up to us. But this is an exciting time to the point now that you have Alex Roldan wanting to come back to play for El Salvador. A lot of the guys that were like, screw this national team, they're not made for it. But a lot has changed, man. You know, you got the U15 team that qualified for the FIFA World Cup for that level. It's a lot that's been changing now for El Salvador, and I'm excited. Not only just in the national team aspect, but also as a country. El Salvador has done such great strides with what they have been doing. And it makes me proud as a Salvadorian to see that. But as far as this team goes, man, I can't wait what they're doing. I think they're in a really interesting group. I think they're in a group where they can definitely make a statement. They're also in the third round of World Cup qualifiers, and I think that this is a good chance for them to show out what they can do. And I can't wait. I can't wait to see hopefully what they do. My only thing I ask for them is please beat Honduras. If you do anything, in this tournament, just beat Honduras. I don't care if you lose to Canada. I don't care if you lose to Curacao. I don't care. Just beat Honduras. That's all I ask, and I will sleep happily.
I'm going to ask you the tough question. I need an answer, a yes or no answer here. If they lose to Honduras but beat Canada and the Curacao, get 6 points.
I can sleep well at night. I mean,
okay, all right. So there is an alternative, guys. You don't have to necessarily just beat Honduras. You just have to beat Canada.
But I have a lot of Honduran friends that will never leave me alone. So that's also the other thing.
Yeah, I guess that's a good segue into my team to watch, which is Honduras, for all the reasons Hector said, which is, look, they're a tough team. Honduras is always the team that gives the U.S. problems. They give Canada problems. They give Mexico problems. Maybe not Mexico as much anymore. but they have traditionally given the powerhouses problems. And when you look at a second team here, they have a chance to sneak their way into a first team to get out of this group in a lot of ways because of the talent, because of the skill around Honduras. I am intrigued to watch them. I do think they have to win against El Salvador and win against Curacao and probably get a draw against Canada to give themselves a favor to go further in the Gold Cup. But they are traditionally speaking, we talked about, well, Canada wasn't a thing for a long time. It was always one, it was Costa Rica. Two was always Honduras making waves. Those are the two teams that always tend to make waves along with Jamaica in these Gold Cup finals. Just kind of surprise somebody every year. And it's been a while since we saw a Honduran team get there. Now, I'm not saying they aren't giving people problems, but it takes a minute for them to get there. So yeah, that's my team to watch is Honduras. Now, Nick, who are you going to watch in Group B?
This is a fun group because I got Canada mainly just because the vibes are good. The vibes with like their manager, he's picking fights with the USA. They brought in Michael Bradley, which I'm not calling Michael Bradley a traitor, but I'd much rather have him coach for the US rather than for Canada. But he did play for Toronto FC for a while. They're without Alphonso Davies, but they're with Jonathan David, who also, like Christian Pulisic, played a long European season, but he still decided to come and represent his country, despite the fact he's a free agent. But I think there's a lot of rumors linking him to Napoli. He's playing for his country, which is a crazy idea now, I guess. In America, is even despite after having a long European season. So yeah, I'm going with Canada.
Yeah, and we'll touch a little bit more on this roster drama here in a minute, but I do love the call out for Canada. By the way, Jesse Marsch, still the most beloved non-American coach who's American in my eyes. I think he got shafted by the U.S. Soccer Federation in that coaching conversation. I think he should have been our coach in the most recent run-up with Greg Berhalter. I think that was one that the U.S. Soccer Federation missed it, and Jesse Marsch is making us pay every single time we turn around. So I love the fact he's calling out the U.S. I love the fact he hired Michael Bradley. Let's not forget, Michael Bradley was a potential German national team player because of how long he spent in Germany for Heerenveen early on in his career. That he could have actually played for the German national team. Not that he would have ever gotten time, but turned out to be one of the best.
He also just took the Red Bull New York 2 job.
I saw that. I assume it's coming after this kind of stint with Canada, is my guess.
Yeah, so that'll be very interesting to watch. American flavor to the friends up north. Look, they still give me the best maple syrup and the Tim Hortons. That's all I care about. All right. So always a big fan of Canada, especially when they don't have to worry about them right now in the group stages. I'm fine with just watching them and enjoying them from afar. Now into Group C. This is one I think you look at Group C as a potential wonderkin from the teams here. You're looking at, on top, Panama, who is the highest ranked team, not named the U.S., Canada, or Mexico. And then Jamaica, Hector aforementioned Guatemala, by the way, giving Honduras troubles forever, or El Salvador troubles forever. And then the mentioned early on was Guadalupe, who, by the way, that is their unofficial flag, but that is the one they use for the Soccer Federation. I'm just full of fun facts today for soccer, guys. I'm glad I can be here as your host to guide you on this tour of flags. Look, guys, when you look at Group C, what is... Yeah, you're welcome for my Sheldon moment. Congratulations.
Fun with flags.
Fun with flags with Kelcey. It's no longer Sheldon. Sorry, Sheldon. I took your job. Maybe that's the next belly up job we'll do.
I need a graphic. I just need a graphic of you just sitting behind that whiteboard.
I mean, I do have a flag behind me, but it's a college flag, but it's still a flag. I'm just gonna throw that out there. All right, guys. Let's get back to the game here. It's the second half. We just had our stoppage moment for injuries here. Mm-hmm. Panama, Jamaica, Guatemala, Guadalupe. I just talked about Jamaica tends to give teams problems. Panama, the higher ranked team, 33rd in the world rankings, getting the number 1 seed in this group. Which one of these two takes the top seed? Let's start there. Hector, who do you think gets the top seed here?
I'm going with I think Panama. They're a very strong team. Christensen is an impeccable coach. I mean, I think he's been able to get these guys to punch above their weight. They were one of the high notes of CONCACAF when it comes to the Copa America, along with Canada. So I think Panama has a good team. Obviously, they have a good group of players. Coco Carrasquilla is going to be their X factor once again. But this team is very solid.
He will miss the group stage, by the way.
Oh, well, yeah. So.
Yeah, he's at least out for the group stage, potentially out for the whole tournament, but he has a chance to re-enter in the group stage or after the group stage, which I'll talk about in a minute.
And then in that case, you have Godoy. You still have some good players on that team. But I'm actually not going to give it to Jamaica. I think Jamaica is a good team. It's just when on paper they look great, but when it comes to actually putting out the product out there, it just feels like there's things left still on the table. The team that I'm going to go with is Guatemala. I think Guatemala has gotten better and better each time I've seen them. And that's who I'm looking to be the team that comes out in second in this group.
I'd imagine that's your team to watch too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Nick, Jamaica, Panama, they're your top two, or do you have another one of these guys as a team to watch?
I said Jamaica team to watch. I think in my predictions I might have put Guatemala as going through, but I think it's Jamaica. I think, as Hector said, on paper they've got like some, frisky players like Damari Gray, Leon Bailey, and they don't always like make it come through on the field. I think this is the tournament they put it together. They're in the midst of World Cup qualifying, and it is a World Cup because of the expansion that they can qualify for. So I think they use this tournament as kind of a springboard and a confidence builder. I don't think they'll win it. Final Four probably, but yeah, I think Jamaica is the team to watch.
Yeah, that is a good point because the CONCACAF does, I believe, get a fourth bid because 3 teams automatically qualify. So I think they get the extra fourth bid because
there'll be 6. There'll be 6 now.
It will be 6 CONCACAF. So they are turning all playoff teams into CONCACAF representatives.
I think. Well, they did something different this time around for the qualifiers because now I think they're in 4 groups of 4. I don't know the top 2 if they're top 2 advance, and then they I guess their version of not the hexagonal, I guess it's the octagonal now.
Yeah.
And
like I said, CONCACAF messy. Go figure.
We're going from the hex to the oct.
And I think it's gonna be top 3. The top 3 teams from the octagonal is gonna be the ones that move on, that joins along with the U.S., Mexico, and Canada to the World Cup. So
yeah, because of the 3 automatic bids, for those that didn't know, they were converting all the playoff spots into the bids to represent Canada and Mexico. I'm just using those 2 as the second and third teams. And then so with the 3 bids from CONCACAF still continuing, that means they got rid of the extra 2 playoff spots as well in that. So yeah, very interesting how the World Cup plays in when you have 3 representative nations. Go figure. By the way, I'm going with Panama as my team to watch, and it's because of the lack of Carrasquilla. He is the guy that I look at as the glue for this team. I'm not saying anything about Godoy. I think he's a fantastic player. But when you look at the young player, the best player in CONCACAF right now, I believe that was the award he just lifted earlier this year, was best player in CONCACAF. So he's not playing. So how does this team function without one of their stalwarts, a guy who we've seen play at the best of levels, despite quote unquote here in the small box I'm in, despite being an MLS player? Can he?
Liga MX player now.
Yeah, Liga MX now. But a guy for your Houston Dynamo, that made a name for himself. So I think that's one. I'm interested to see how Panama can make their way through this. I do think they do make it. I do think Jamaica makes it, but that's my team to watch here. Now we will talk about the roster in a second as we go into Group D. We're gonna hold off on the roster drama just yet, guys. Don't go there yet. But obviously the U.S. B team, maybe C team, Haiti, Trinidad Tobago, and the invitee from non-CONCACAF nation Saudi Arabia. All right, before we get into the roster drama, guys, who's your team to watch here, and why is it not the U.S.? Just kidding. Nick, go ahead. Who is your team to watch here?
It is the U.S. And before we get into the roster drama, I just would say no roster drama. Losing a couple friendlies before the World Cup, maybe not a ton of casual, like really casual soccer fans who are going to watch the World Cup would watch the Gold Cup, but you want them to see the headline that the USA wins the Gold Cup a year before the World Cup.
I absolutely agree. I also had the USA for a lot of the reasons. Now, I do want to have you talk about your player to watch for this one because I do think it's interesting before we get into the roster why your player to watch is who it is. Nick, can you go ahead and give us that one?
Yes, I said my player to watch was a manager. He did play, but he is not playing. He is managing Mauricio Pochettino. He is going to have to prove in this tournament that he is a good international manager. He is a great club manager, but he needs to either A, change his style, B, somehow fit his style to the players he has, or C, fail miserably. Because if he does not do well, there will be Pochettino out, Pochettino out, Pochettino out. People all over the internet saying, we got to take this guy out of here. Let's get in. Somehow we'll revert back to getting an American manager. But I think he has the most pressure on him out of any person in this tournament.
I like that. Hector, you and I talked a lot about Mauricio Pochettino when he was named the new manager for the U.S. men's national team. And I believe we both had the same feeling where he is very much a guy that needs to work his skills into what it means to be an international coach versus what it means to be a club coach, because it is two different games in a lot of ways. How do you think you feel about Pochettino going into this, and is the USA your team to watch?
US is not my team to watch. I mean, it's the obvious team to watch, so that's why I picked somebody else. But, yeah, no, the pressure's on Pochettino. I think, look, Camp Cupcake was cool, but you played against a B team, Venezuela, and I forgot the other country that was played against them. But since then, you had an embarrassment of a Nations League. And then on top of, I mean, besides beating the Reggae Boys in Jamaica to qualify for the Nations League semifinal, and then the friendlies, I take it with a grain of salt a little bit, just because I will say the 2-1 loss. I think it was 2-1 loss to Turkey. I feel like they fixed things defensively at the second half, but this Switzerland game, I mean, we're talking about Switzerland. They're a really good nation that competes in the Euros and also competes in the World Cup. So I don't want to take that away from anything, but yeah, it was just a poor performance, and it just showed that, the depth that, once again, that we mentioned plenty of times at this point, is just beating a dead horse now. It's just not gonna be equivalent to when we have the full roster, when we have Sergiño Dest, when we have when we have Anthony Robinson, when we have Weston
Musa.
McKennie, Timothy Way. Some people feel either near there with Musa. A healthy Ricardo Pepi, a Balogun that's in form, and of course, CMP10, who, we'll get more into him, but at this point, we're just like, we need this squad to be healthy. Pochettino's never got to play with the full actual U.S. men's national team, I guess you could say, and I don't know. It's getting kind of tiresome now at this point, because I'm not going to use that as an excuse, because there's been moments where I feel like the tactics do work in some extent, but once again, I just don't think the talent's there, and it's frustrating as seeing it. But yeah, I think what Nick said about if Pochettino has to get this done right, they have to win the Gold Cup. It isn't, we're just gonna here to try out. We're just gonna see things work. No, we need to start. You got Mexico who's taking this seriously. You got Canada who's taking it seriously and also throwing some backhanded compliments, or maybe no compliments at all, just taking shots at the U.S. Those two, who are also in the same boat as the U.S. men's national team, that they don't necessarily need to prove anything in this because they're already in the World Cup, they put out rosters. Aside from Alphonso Davies just still recovering from his torn ACL that he got from the Nations League, or I forgot what he tore actually, but nonetheless, those two have rosters. Mm-hmm. Those two brought their guys, and you have the U.S. men's national team that just said, "Sure, Pulisic, go. You don't have to come. But Pulisic wanted to play those 2 friendlies, right?
Yes, I was going to bring that up, that he said today that he wanted to play the 2 friendlies, but the coaching staff said they wanted 1 roster.
And I'm on
I
the
think that's
I'm on the coaching
I
side.
like that. I like that. I like the coaching staff saying this isn't like this isn't a Airbnb. You can't just come and then leave. Like,
No, you don't get to play against the European teams.
yeah,
Like,
I agree. I like that. I was like, yes, this isn't all about you.
That's all fair. Now, Hector, is that your team to watch? I just real quick to end the Group D. Let me before I get into the roster conversation because I do have some comments back for this.
my team to watch is Haiti. I think they're usually a pretty frisky team in this tournament. And I want to see hopefully Fafa Pico can do something with the boys in Haiti. Also because I'm not a fan of all the people saying that Saudi Arabia is automatically going to move on to the knockout round. Like, like CONCACAF is okay. It's not terrible, but it's not great. But it is a physical competition. And I think you're going to see it when you go up against Haiti. You're going to see it when you go up against what's the other team in the group?
Trinidad and Tobago.
Especially Trinidad and Tobago. So these teams are very physical. They're very fit because they've also deal with humidity. And also Saudi Arabia, this is them experiencing weather that they probably have never comprehended before, because you can go from 80-degree weather in the north to stepping outside and already sweating. So you just don't know what you're gonna get from them. They're gonna have to get used to it. A lot of people assume Qatar had a good first time around, but the second time they got grouped, or I think they got eliminated in the first round. So it is not an easy. It is not easy for them. And I understand that people take CONCACAF lightly sometimes, but at the end of the day, I think CONCACAF is still it's going to be a tough competition, and I hope Haiti or Trinidad and Tobago can show Saudi Arabia like, hey, we're not pushovers. We're going to compete.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think Saudi, it's not necessarily easy for them. This is a unique situation, and this is kind of why they wanted to get the experience right in the U.S. because the travel in the U.S. and we've talked about this on your show before. The travel in the U.S. is different. And this kind of leads me into the roster drama.
And you only got to go at one half of the country now.
Yeah, exactly. When we talk about the Christian Pulisic break, what makes it so problematic from the people talking about it is these people only ever played in the U.S. All the American players that have played European football aren't coming out and lambasting a young, talented player who's been playing more games in this first 10 years from a 16-year-old to now as these guys have in their entire careers. Landon Donovan, he has played only 100 more games for club and country than what Christian Pulisic has today. Which seems like a lot, but when you consider he plays 43 club games a year, it becomes a lot a lot closer, where we're talking 2 seasons of club football plus a couple World Cup and potentially another tournament. I don't hate the idea that Christian Pulisic is taking a break. And the reason why is I think there was a failure from U.S. soccer to begin with 6 months ago, 12 months ago. Because when they hired Greg Berhalter back, they set up the U.S. to fail in this World Cup cycle. Because they did not allow the U.S. to proceed and find a core group 2 years ago and let them get into the mention where now the Gold Cup wouldn't matter. Yes, the Gold Cup matters now, but I care more about seeing Christian Pulisic next year in 2026 than I care about a CONCACAF Gold Cup in our hardware. I don't care. I need to figure out my 14 through 21 players on my World Cup roster. Which is why this doesn't bother me, the Christian Pulisic thing, the Timothy Weah thing, he's with Juventus, Wes McKennie's with Juventus, Serginho Dest being left off bothers me. I know he's working his way back, but that still kind of bothers me. Josh Sargent not really getting a fair call in, that also bothers me. I think Pochettino left players off that I'm more intrigued to see work into its roster, and I think that's a bigger problem that's not being talked about than this Christian Pulisic conversation. So I bring all that up to say this with roster drama. It's all for naught after the group stage. Because in the Club World Cup, and I said this in the lead in, you've been with us for 2 hours. I greatly appreciate it because this is the important thing that's worth mentioning. In the Gold Cup, you have the ability to call in and transition players in and out of your roster between knockout group stage and knockout stages. You don't have to have Christian Pulisic on your group stage roster. You don't have to have Timothy Weah on the group stage roster because if they get knocked out in the group stage, he can come in for the knockout stages. These guys don't need to be there for the group stages when you're in a group with Haiti, Trinidad, Tobago, and Saudi Arabia. Landon Donovan, Clinton Dempsey, Tim Howard, Michael Bradley, Ngushi Onyewu, Carlos Bocanegra all took breaks during the group stage of the Gold Cup. I remember it because I remember watching Michael Bradley wear a 24 jersey for 1 year. And I'm like, why is he wearing 24? I remember seeing Landon Donovan wear a 17, wondering why he's wearing 17 in a tournament. It's because you don't need to be there for the group stage for the U.S. men's national team. So I say that to say all this, to ask you guys this question. If we were to see a Christian Pulisic come in for the knockout stage, do you care to see him at all in this tournament? Or do you just not want to see? Do you stick with what Pochettino said where it's one team for the rest of the tournament? Nick, I'll let you start with that one.
I think Pochettino is trying to create a culture, and I think the culture he's trying to create is like we're all in. Like there's no like coming and going. So I like it. If Pulisic, was like, I've gotten too much hate, I'm coming back. I really want to come back. Please let me come back. And did like an Instagram post or whatever. And he came back. I wouldn't be like, I don't want him to play. I would want him to play. I don't want to see how he fits with Pochettino. I think I wrote down our probably first 11, and in our first 11, there is probably 2 players in this team or in this whole squad that are going to be in our first 11. That's Chris Richards and Tyler Adams. I did put a question mark at the second center back position and a question mark at the attacking mid position. So I think there are maybe a couple first 11 positions up for grabs that people aren't really thinking about right now. But yeah, I would rather just have Pochettino stick to his guns and be like, this is the team we're using.
What about goalkeeper? Who do you have as your starting goalkeeper? Is it not Matt Turner?
It is Matt Turner. He's in.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, yeah, you're right. 3 players. My bad.
Okay. No, I'm
Okay,
just making sure because I was curious. Yeah, I was gonna say Hector has a very differing opinion on Matt Turner long term for the U.S. backstop, but that's why I'm asking is
if he needs to play. He needs to play 30 plus, 40 plus games.
He's going to the club that you're wearing right now.
I saw that. I was gonna say he's going to Leon. I don't know how his French is, but I think you just need to say push up, come back. I'm here. Open.
They like Formula One in France. They know what push means. So
definitely.
Hector, what are your thoughts? If Christian wants to come back for the knockout rounds, if Timothy Weah wants to come in the knockout rounds, Weston McKennie, do you give him it or do you just say nah, not this tournament?
Look, Weston McKennie and Timothy Weah and anyone that's competing in the Club World Cup has an excuse. No one's mad at those guys. That competition is going to take priority because their club is not. Because once again, Weston McKennie and Tim Weah are guys that does get used regularly for Juventus. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's not what anybody's mad at. If anyone's mad because of players competing in the Club World Cup, they're not really understanding. Christian Pulisic, the reason why people look, if the Nations League would have ended in a more prideful way, I'm not saying that they needed to win the Nations League, but if they were in the final and played tooth and nail with Mexico in that final, then everyone's going to be like, well, we know they can compete. They at least know how they can compete in competition. We know that Pochettino, his system is maybe there, maybe a few tinkers. Maybe now we can go into this Gold Cup where we can just test out the guys that are like the fringe guys. But that's not the case. This is an important Gold Cup. And we need to stop talking about the Gold Cup like it's an afterthought competition. Because at the end of the day, while the U.S. maybe is not looking at it like that, because this roster tells me everything of what they did because of how many guys opted out. Sergino Dest opted out. Balogun opted out. You had who else opted out? I think
Musa,
Richards
but
was Musa
Jed,
opted out for personal.
Musa was mental health,
Yeah,
personal reasons. So.
Sergeant
well,
Sergeant was
Musa's
for
trying to
football
find
reasons.
Musa's trying to find out where he's going to after
Yeah.
Milan.
Yeah,
So-
it's a weird thing in the summer where players have to kind of like figure out their next move, but also
So-
maybe play for their
so-
country.
so
It's
guys-
weird.
So guys like Musa has a pass. Gio Reyna has a definite pass because he needs to figure out where he's going to play.
He just needs to play.
You know, shoot, Matt Turner. If Matt Turner, give props to Matt Turner. Like, you know, as much as like I give that guy a lot of crap, he's here and he still figured out his club situation. But the point is that this does matter. This Gold Cup does in fact matter. It doesn't matter regardless of what was the result of the Nations League. This is the final time you're going to have competitive matches. Friendlies are one thing, but competitive matches is a whole different thing. And at the end of the day, if you're available, and this is kind of what Clint Dempsey and Landon Donovan and whoever was old man yelling at Cloud that day was saying, was that if I was physically capable of playing for the U.S. men's national team, I'm going to play. Just like how Landon Donovan, even though maybe comparing him to Cristiano Ronaldo was not fair, but Cristiano Ronaldo, 40 years old, playing in the UEFA Nations League, take it for however you feel about the UEFA Nations League, you know, but scoring a goal in the Nations League final, had that little steal off of Lamine Yamal. All those things, he played out. He got hurt at the end of it all, but still played out and got to lift one more trophy with his national team. You know, and at the end of the day, and if you don't want to use him, then talk about the other guys that have played ridiculous amount of games that still half the guys that played for PSG were playing for the national team. Fabian Ruiz was playing for Spain.
Hmm.
You had Dembele, Doué, playing for France.
Norman was
Nuno Mendes probably had player of the match performance in the final. I don't know if he got it, but he was a spectacular player for Portugal. He came out. He played Vitinha. João Neves playing fullback. Like these guys had the same thing that I had this competition. And say what you want. Some people think Nations League is a joke, and they're out there competing for it like they wanted to win it. And it's because at the end of the day, those guys, when they have a chance to play for the national team, they're going to take it. Like that's why when you have guys like from Men in Blazers talking about if Harry Kane would have opted out of playing for England, the English media would have been eating him alive.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we get criticized for criticizing Pulisic. That how does that work? Make that make sense to me. When we want to be vocal, we want this team to be good, but then we get made fun of because it's cringy. Oh, no, this team is trash. Don't worry about them. Things like that. That's what we get because of we can't criticize his national team, but then the national team does, and we become the laughing stock because what Christian Pulisic did is it just says, hey, this national team isn't serious. And the worst part of it all, and I wish it wasn't the case, but it is the reality. Christian Pulisic has a spot. It's not going anywhere because he is the best player for the U.S. men's national team. And once again, I have nothing against the break. Like I have nothing against if that was the case. But you know what? Stay quiet. Why do you have to speak out? Why do you need your dad to say? Well, first of all, you should have told your dad to shut up.
Yeah.
Don't go on social media and start taking jabs at Landon Donovan for taking a sabbatical.
ChatGPT.
Sabbatical, by the way. A sabbatical, not a break. He took a sabbatical. He was contemplating if he was even gonna play again. So it's a different conversation, but I get it because that's when he came back and started because Landon Donovan said I was being humble. No, he didn't. He thought his spot in the U.S. men's national team was going to be there for the World Cup, and it wasn't there, and he was being pouty, and that's why I don't like Landon Donovan.
Yeah,
but for Christian Pulisic. Look, I get it. Take a break. Your body's hurt. Whatever. Eric Wijnaldum has your back. But don't. You knew people were gonna say something. You knew it. But stand on it. Stand on your toes. But don't be over here saying, "Oh yeah, I wanted to play the two friendlies." That just makes you look even worse. Because that just tells us, "Oh, I don't want to play in the Gold Cup, but I'll play against Turkey."
I got to ask this because it does bother me some that we're complaining about somebody right now and about a precedent set by generations before him. And those generations are the ones complaining about him. I do have to ask the question of, is it fair to criticize Christian Pulisic for this when, as you mentioned, Landon took a sabbatical. Sabbatical is a sabbatical, but it's still a break. Dempsey taking group stages off. Eddie Johnson took group stages off. Tim Howard took group stages off. Barcanegra, I can go down the list of players. The only one that didn't, DeMarcus Beasley, and Jay DeMerit. Those are the only two guys that historically played multiple Gold Cups for the U.S. men's national team that didn't take group stages off from the Gold Cup, no matter the time of year. Is this a problem that the older generations that set this precedent of it being okay are complaining? Or, second to that, is this a byproduct of the fact that U.S. soccer is looked at as a laughing stock among the rest of the world?
I think the fact that Pulisic is treating the Gold Cup like a bowl game, and he's like, nah, I'm gonna take the bowl game out and I'm gonna prepare for the NFL draft, or in this case, it's the World Cup next year. I wonder if there's a little bit like kind of NBA mentality of load management, like, oh, I've been injured like I've had a history of injuries. Let me not play this tournament in case I get injured, which I would counter that point. If anybody wants to make the injury point, I would say Tyler Adams is playing in this Gold Cup.
Yeah.
I think I would hope he's the captain.
Him and Matt Turner are sharing captaincy.
Okay. I would say Tyler Adams has had a far worse injury, more recent injury record, and also the Premier League is harder than the Serie, or more physically demanding than the Serie A.
I mean, Serie A did have a finalist in the
That's
Champions
true. That's true. Maybe not competitive, but more, I would say, like up and down. Yeah, physical. So I would say that. I would say, to your point about is the USA a joke to the rest of the world in terms of our soccer, I do think there is a little bit of people looking at this and being like, really? You have a new coach, home World Cup, and you have a month or however long the tournament's, like a month or probably like a month and a half, considering before.
2 months,
yeah,
2 World Cup is 2 months.
Or no, like the Gold Cup.
Oh,
it's
Gold
like
Cup.
a month.
Yeah, Gold Cup is a month. Yep.
You have a month to be with the new coach, who, by the way, we talk about the players needing to get used to the coach. The coach needs to get used to the players. He can only watch. You can't. How much can you really learn sitting in San Siro watching Pulisic play for Milan? So I would say that I think it makes U.S. soccer look bad, and I think it kills a little bit of hype around the World Cup or the team, and it makes us be like, wait, do we really care about this? Like, what's up?
That's fair. That's fair. By the way, also, as you were talking about that, it is worth mentioning the friendlies that Pulisic says he was interested in. We go using Landon Donovan as the comparison, considering he's the one who said it, and everybody's comparing that. Landon Donovan also did take the practices and the exhibitions before the sabbatical, before a Gold Cup. He did play in those exhibition games, then took his sabbatical. Now, Hector, I do want to ask you the same question. Is it a problem that the older generations that set the precedent of being able to take group stages off are complaining, or is this a American byproduct of the way we look at sports, and it's being looked at now from a worldview of being problematic?
Look, like I said, if it wasn't for the fact that the Nations League was so bad, because if we beat Panama, went to the final, and lost 4-3 to Mexico, none of us would be talking about it. Yeah, we would talk about how we lost to Mexico, because that's still not what America wants to see. But still, you're like, oh, we put in a shift. We saw what we see. We feel confident that we can maybe have a good showing next time around. But that didn't happen. We have, one, apparently we don't know how to play against Panama. That's for certain. Straight in competitive matches, we have yet to beat Panama, and then we get bullied and then we get beat by Canada. So like I said, the thing that makes things even worse of all this, that the fact that you had the whole thing with Christian Pulisic, and then a lot of players that opted out, is, normally when you mentioned, the other Gold Cups, normally Mexico also pulls out a B team.
Yeah.
Now, I won't say Canada, because, at that point, Canada was still trying
Canada
to
never
find
could
themselves.
afford to pull a B team. I don't think they had enough players that were good enough to be a B team.
Yeah. But Mexico would bring out their B team. So it was always, USA's B team versus Mexico's B team in the final more often than not. The thing that's different, and while I'm sure, but this is what I always say, Mexico does take CONCACAF seriously, even with the B team. They come in and they want to compete. There's a reason why they have the most trophies in Gold Cup. I mean, there's only three nations that have won the Gold Cup. Well, actually, technically, I think
4.
Brazil.
It's 4, yeah, because there's an invitee nation that's won.
Yeah, but they always compete. They have pride. At the end of the day, with Mexico, there's always a pride. There's always a sense of pride of making sure that they represent their flag right. And right now, you know, all you have is Alexi Lalas getting mad at this U.S. men's national team. You know, even Eric Winalda has gone off on this U.S. men's national team. Yes, Clint Dempsey has gone off on this U.S. men's. Everyone has been trying to figure out what is wrong with this U.S. men's national team. Now, from the outsider's perspective, obviously you have like Alexi Lalas going to FS1 and, you know, doing his circuits of interviews with all the American talking heads. And the first question is always, is there something wrong with this team, or is it because we don't have our guys? That's the question. And, you know, you want to try to sit there and say, like, hey, nah, I think, you know, we have something here with this Diego Luna kid. You know, hey, Tyler Adams is here. We have this guy, that guy. You know, there's still guys that can compete. But at the end of the day, they're like, where's Christian Pulisic? Ain't that our captain? Where's the LeBron James of soccer? And then he goes on into Golasso and tries to save face. But I think in reality, he hurt himself even more in that interview.
Yeah. His interview today definitely didn't help him at all. I agree with that. I think you both brought that up. It's not. I don't hate the fact he's taking a break. I hate the fact of the timing of the break. That's the part I hate personally. I do hate the criticism from the people with criticism, from the talking heads with criticism, because those talking heads are the people that set the precedent. That's what bothers me. But I think from the grand scheme of this is exactly, I mean, I talked to it was a problem from the USSF to begin with. They set the precedent 2 years ago when they rehired Berhalter. That was the first problem. Second problem was then firing Berhalter, because now you have to restart the process midway through the cycle. Now you have Pochettino come in, and there was already a delay in getting Pochettino hired, so then there's an even bigger delay.
Yeah, that was weird.
It's a process of errors by the U.S. going into a crucial World Cup on home soil, and now you have your superstars. And it's not just one. It's 7 players, as we talked about, that are not going to be playing for various reasons. I'm not going to blame all of them. Doesn't look great, though, for the U.S. going into 2026. Now, all that said to say, we still have to pick predictions for the groups. You guys ready for this? We're real quick. Let's run down this. Group A. Who is making it out for you guys? Hector, who are you getting out of Group
A? Mexico and Costa Rica.
Mexico, Costa Rica. All right. Nick, who are you going?
Same. Mexico, Costa Rica.
Yeah, I am also going with Mexico, Costa Rica. I don't think Suriname has enough in the tank to get out of that division or out of that group. Group B. Canada, Honduras, El Salvador, and Curacao. Hector, are you picking El Salvador?
Yep, Canada and El Salvador.
Okay, Nick, what about you?
Same, Canada, El Salvador.
Man, I might lose Hector's respect for this one. I'm gonna go with Honduras and Canada.
Yeah, you're not getting any pupusas. Man, no pupusas for you.
I gotta change my answer. I gotta go El Salvador then, because I can't lose pupusas for my life. I may be white, but I am not that white to be able to handle a life without pupusas. So, yeah, looks like I'm changing my answer by force here. Nature has forced me to change my answer. Canada and El Salvador, I guess, is what we're going with as a unanimous decision, guys. Group C. Who you guys have come out of Group C for this one? Hector?
I'm gonna say Panama, obviously. I think Christensen's going to be a big ed factor. I think he's still going to have, without Coco Carrasquilla, I think with Christensen, he's still able to lead this group well. And then my team is Guatemala, the other team.
Okay. All right. Wow. Nick, what about you?
Panama, Jamaica. I think Jamaica finally gets it done. I think they go to the Final Four.
All right. Well, I'm also picking Panama, so we have a unanimous Panama. Deciding between which one I'm going to go with on the two of you. I went with Hector on the El Salvador, so I don't lose pupusas. I can't go with Hector on Guatemala, though. Sorry, Guatemalans, but I am going with Jamaica and the Reggae Boys in this one. I like my jerk chicken a little too much.
Can't miss out on the oxtail.
Exactly, man. Oof. Don't get me started. All right. Anyways, Group D here: USA, Haiti, Trinidad, Tobago, Saudi Arabia. Who do we have getting out of this one?
USA and Haiti.
Okay, going with Haiti. Nick, what about you?
USA, Saudi Arabia.
Wow. We're gonna go all different here with the second team. I'm going USA, Trinidad, and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago, tough team in Gold Cup matchups. They love to beat up on teams, and they got a couple teams in here they historically beat up on, and then Saudi Arabia. So I think that'll be a very fun physical matchup on that one. We'll be back with more Gold Cup response. It won't be 2 hours next time when we get into the knockout stages. We have a lot less teams to talk about then. Same for the Club World Cup. We'll be doing that on the 27th. Can't wait for that. But guys, before we get out of here, we do love to do a little special thing called Belly Up Bets. I know you guys have seen it online. We do have a couple picks for winners, early winners. So this is before the group stage starts for the two tournaments. And let's go ahead and pop up the graphic here for the Belly Up Bets. And we have winning the FIFA Club World Cup, going then doing the double in FIFA competitions, or well, international, national, whatever you want to call it. PSG plus 470 to win the FIFA Club World Cup. Young team. They're going to bring their ones. You know they're going to be a competitive team, and they got the legs to get there. And then on the other side, Canada is a plus 550, the second highest odds of any team in the Gold Cup to win, behind only Mexico with his plus 300 odds. So those are your two belly up bets for the summer of soccer. Now, this might change when we get to the knockout stage. You just never know. So be careful to stay tuned for that. We'll be back for more. But guys, before we go ahead and plug where people can find you. Nick, let's start with you on this one. Where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Twitter or X at Nik Gable 37. Yeah. And then I write for Belly Up, write about soccer, write about college football, write about basketball and the NBA. I'll be writing a little bit about the NBA draft when we get closer. And then I got a couple soccer articles I need to write specifically about Napoli and their title win and how they're going to get on in Conte season 2.
Oh, there you go. And don't forget Kevin De Bruyne going to Napoli.
Oh, yes, De Bruyne too. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, so that'll be a good one. All right, awesome. Thanks, Nick. Hector, where can the people find you on their screens?
I mean, anything social media at Insert Name FC. That's where you can find us there. Speaking of sabbaticals, we're currently taking a break from, obviously the season's over. We wrapped it up after the Champions League. But be on the lookout. We'll drop an episode here and there throughout the summer, but especially with the summer of soccer going on. But yeah, at Insert Name FC on Instagram and X. That's usually where you'll find all the updates of what's going on over there at Insert Name FC.
All right, I love it. Maybe we'll get a cartoon Hector holding a pupusa and an El Salvadorian flag as they advance to the knockout stages, is what I'm hearing, coming up soon while you're on sabbatical.
Maybe.
A lot of fun. And yeah, at least put me in there with a pupusa. That's all I ask for.
Send me a picture.
I have frozen ones in the freezer, by the way. They are not great.
Not the same.
But they are still better than life without pupusas. I just need to say that, and I will keep saying that. That might be a tagline. Maybe I need to get that on a t-shirt. Better than life without pupusas.
I like to live by that.
Maybe we get that on an Insert Name co-brand t-shirt. We can get that one next to the Harry Kane shirt for you.
Belly Up, get to making some t-shirts, man.
There you go, guys. All right, well, we will be back with more of the summer of soccer after the group stages. Stay tuned to all the social media platforms for all of us, as we will be continuously posting throughout the group stages as we get to the knockout stages. And then stay tuned for the 27th, where we'll be having another super show, probably shorter. I say probably because who knows? Maybe there's more roster drama by the time we get there. You just never know. But guys, we appreciate it, as always, for you guys to tune in. And until next time, we'll see you around.